Let the record show there are none. All those in favor? Carried. Severance applications. I guess it's time for you to exit there. We'll rattle your chain when it's time. B19-2023 unaddressed Robinson Road. Jason, will you give us a little preamble, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look for my colleagues who are running the screen to pull a sketch up because I think it's going to be somewhat easier to describe if we have a visual on the screen. I also recognize that the applicant and their agent are here this evening to provide any additional detail that would be best represented from their perspective as opposed to staff's. From that point of view, I recognize that this application pertains to a greater set as an overall development plan for the southwest corner of County Road 4 and Robinson Road. It's a parcel of land that many believe to be one single parcel. However, in fact, it's three separately conveyable parcels that equate to nearly 50 acres in size that's currently functioning as an agricultural cornfield. This sketch up on the screen is what we have before us this evening, and many of you around the table and committee, as well as in the audience this evening, would see familiarity with this sketch as it relates to what we saw at the September 27th, 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting. The applications on the west side of the unopened municipal road allowance running north-south from Robinson Road to the Cataraqui Trail have been largely unchanged. I shouldn't say largely. They have not changed from what we had previous to what we see today in front of us. The applications on the east side have changed, and you can see that, and we can discuss those later on this evening as we get into the different subsets of these applications before you on tonight's agenda. That being said, A1, parcel A1, which is the central parcel on the screen on the west side of the unopened road allowance, is this first application, B19-2023. So I have really nothing further to add from what we discussed at the previous meeting in September, aside from the fact that you can see compliance as it relates to the frontage and the area requirements of our zoning bylaw. The lands are located within a rural designation of the County of Lennox and Addington's official plan, as well as a rural designation within the Township of Stone Mills official plan. And the proposal here is to sever one parcel and retain a parcel to the west of that. The easement that you see across the bottom, or the dotted line, sorry, that you see across the bottom of the parcel is an easement, a stormwater easement that brings stormwater from east to west and outlets near the Cataraqui Trail in the southwest corner of that sketch. That's proposed or required to be remaining intact through this application suite. As well, there's been a condition that's been drafted and recommended for committee's consideration that recognizes that easement. Mr. Chair, I think that's an overview as it relates to this single land holding A1 through B19-2023 from staff's perspective, in trying to not be overly extensive given the limited changes from what we had at the previous meeting to date.
Thank you, Jason. Committee members have any concerns, questions? Yes, Merle?
I noticed in a lot of people's references to prime agricultural land, it's my understanding that it is not prime agricultural land, that perhaps when the official plan was updated and has now been officially updated, that could have been addressed. And apparently it was not. So it remains rural designation rather than prime agricultural land. The second thing is a lot of information about the water. And I only have one question. I'll direct that to Mr. Clancy and therefore to Jason. And that is do we know or have any information from anywhere in the province that building where there is a significant recharge area is detrimental?
Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to first bring some clarity to the first comment question, Member Fenwick, as it relates to the prime agricultural designation. You're accurate in the sense that this land holding, specifically A1 and the entirety of the land holding from County Road 4 West, in the official plan of the county and the township official plan is not designated prime ag. There has been a lot of comment that I've seen so far to date with respect to the soil classification that applies to the land holding as being a key driver as to whether or not OMAF and the province would designate such lands for protection as a prime agricultural designation status, for example. We at the municipal level don't regulate classification of soils. That's the province with respect to what we consider designated prime ag land and not. And this application in the 2014, or sorry, this land holding in the 2014 official plan was not, it was a rural designation at that time. We have a new official plan as of 2 weeks ago that again does not designate this land holding as prime agriculture. However, I just want to provide some clarity on that. There's a clergy principle that applies to this. When the applications were submitted, they're reviewed under the policy set that was applicable at time of submission. So the sense that there's a new official plan is largely irrelevant to this concept. So that's just a comment as it relates to the prime agricultural designation and lack thereof on the land holding as seen on the screen. The question of a significant groundwater recharge area is a great question. It's a question and a policy set that we have inclusion in our official plan. We recognize the importance of a groundwater recharge area through our policy set. It's been made reference to within this document before committee this evening. The conservation authorities provide best practices. There's been a recent communication email sent around regarding groundwater recharge through rain, like depressed area, rain garden, swales, that kind of opportunity. Different levels of protection on home heating supply, oil, propane, et cetera, on double barreled or double walled systems. So there is best practices that are applicable that we're aware of at the municipal level. But we at the municipal level don't have a prohibition, for example, on preventing development in a significant groundwater area. We have policies that state, in short, and I'm not quoting them verbatim, is technical studies that demonstrate that the development is considered appropriate if it is in a location of a significant groundwater area. And this application, being in that location, has been required to complete a hydrogeological assessment. I shouldn't say it's been required, that's a recommendation of staff before committee this evening, that be applied on this application specifically. Thank you.
Does that satisfy you, Merrill? Okay. Questions from the audience? Yes, sir. Come and join us at the table. State your name, please.
Wayne Goodyear?
Yes, sir.
Anything to ask for?
Yeah, the white button, silver button, that red light will come on. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Bob, you can time me because you know what happens if you don't. Okay, my concerns are 4, and I put them in the form of questions, and I don't expect anyone to feel that you've got to answer these questions right now, okay? But these are the things that I think are going to come back and be visited again and again, and you've already covered a couple of them, Marilyn, okay?
Wayne,
Yes.
before you carry on, can I have your name and address for the record?
Sure. Wayne Goodyear. That's Goodyer. Okay. And 2885 County Road 6 in Yarkert. You need a postal code? No?
Thanks, Wayne.
Can you hear me okay, folks?
Yep.
All right. So here we go. Has the Committee of Adjustments consulted the Quinte Conservation website, which reveals the subject property is located on the most extensive aquifer recharge area between Verona and Hastings County? Apparently they have. This research area is actually an enormous natural water filtration plant that operates at no cost to the residents and supplies the water for homes and farms between Camden East and Newburgh. On the handout that I gave out to folks in the audience, and I believe you got it too, you can see the extent is unbelievable. It goes from Curl Road to just about almost to the turn for Newburgh, and its depth is astounding. How big is it? It's the largest recharge area until you go to Hastings and you go north of Belleville, and those with a farming background know how profitable the farms are north of Belleville on that moraine. That's the first place you'll find anything like this. It's an absolutely astounding sized recharge area, and therefore it provides one awful lot of filtered water. Okay, point number 2. Has the Committee of Adjustments taken steps to determine the extent of the contaminant plume emanating from the Camden Waste Disposal Site? And no, this is not alarmist. No new monitoring wells have been installed since 2004, at which time it was discovered that the contaminant plume had already passed the lower Doyle Road area. That's about 1,500 meters from the subject property. After 2004, the boundaries of the dump were significantly expanded in an effort to contain the plume. It is vital to install monitoring wells to measure how far and in what direction the plume has advanced. Pynchon Engineering in their 2022 report suggested that the groundwater moved in a south and southeasterly direction, which, if you look at the angle of County Road 4, which really slopes quite a bit to the northwest, brings it directly toward the subject property. Perhaps there's 50 different things could happen between those two spots, but we need to know. Okay? Number 3, has the Committee of Adjustments had qualified engineers review the well reports from wells already drilled on the subject property and from upgradient wells to determine levels of contaminants such as salts and herbicides, hazardous chemicals, and nitrates? Such tests should also determine the speed at which the aquifer is moving, which any hydrogeologist can do if you give them 3 wells. The faster it moves, the higher the risk for contamination. Existing well reports for the subject property should be made available to all parties. I've heard everything from 1 well having been drilled on the property to 11 wells having been drilled, and hearsay is worth exactly what you pay for it. So I think it's wise to know the status of the wells and the reports for them. And number 4, is the Committee of Adjustments aware that when the Clean Water Act was created in 2004, it was actually anticipated that source water protections would be extended to include significant aquifer recharge areas for rural communities too. As you know, they were done for towns and cities of certain size, but that never happened. The burden of protecting the aquifer and the residents falls to the approval authorities of Stone Mills Township. Question, is the Committee of Adjustment qualified and prepared to do so? Thank you very much.
Any committee members have any concerns or questions on Wayne's presentation? Okay. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Michalski. I live on 619 Bethel Road. I'd like to add some clarity to the issue of the soil classifications. I did speak with a couple of experts with the ministry. I've not put their names in simply because they're civil servants. However, if you wish to know the names, I can give them to you so that you can make your own confirmations. My wife and I grow certified organic hay and organically raised heritage breeds of cattle and sheep for breeding, and the stock is sold across Canada. My wife spins and weaves wool products, which are also sold across Canada online. In terms of the soil classifications, Class 1 is the highest. It means there's no significant limitations for crops, and these standards or classifications, as you probably know, are for across Canada. For example, in Stone Mills, the Hudgens Farm along County Road 1 near Strathcona, which has recently been severed into about 30-acre parcels. That is considered Class 1 soil. Class 2 means moderate limitations. It reduces the choice in crops. That's the Galbraith field, and is part of a Class 2 soil deposit that stretches from Newburgh to the Curl Road. The next useful classification for us in Stone Mills is Class 6. It's unsuitable for cultivation, but capable for unimproved pasture. That's all of Bethel Road. It is most of Stone Mills Township. For this reason, all three farm organizations have in fact raised concerns about any severances on this field. The Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario requests that we continue the agricultural zoning. And again, the wording technical wording might not be correct, but I think the message is clear. They wish to continue the agricultural zoning for the 50-acre parcel. No severances of development should be permitted beyond what is allowed for prime agricultural zone lands on this parcel. Of course, they are assuming that there are in fact bylaws referring specifically to prime agricultural zone, prime agricultural land here in the township. This letter, like the next two, again, I'll just give the extracts. We're all written with input from the local representatives, but interestingly enough, when I was talking to them, all of this was drafted, in fact, by the head office. So we're talking about the policy of each organization here. Food producing lands are a finite resource. Ontario's productive farmland is the foundation of the significant economic contributions of our overall agri-food sector, which is important to a strong Ontario economy. Farmland and adjoining natural features together ensure environmental benefits and corridors for wildlife and water throughout the landscape. Productive farmland is vital to our food security here in Ontario and globally. All these benefits are lost when farmland is permanently removed from production. The Lennox and Addington Federation of Agriculture. There's only one Ontario landscape, full range of urban, rural, agricultural. The protection of Ontario's prime agricultural areas for their long-term agricultural use must be a key objective for Lennox and Addington, and obviously by extension, Stone Mills. As Ontario's agricultural lands are a finite and shrinking resource, we must seriously consider how we will feed our increasing population. We cannot sustain continuing losses of agricultural land while maintaining our ability to produce food, fiber, fuel, flowers, and nursery stock from this limited and declining agricultural land base. Further, we wish to highlight our perspective that in prime agricultural areas, the only permitted uses should be agricultural uses. Agricultural-related uses, on-farm diversified uses compatible with the surrounding agricultural operations, home-based businesses. Agricultural uses include, but are not limited to, general farming, livestock, poultry operations, and so on. Once again, they go over the same as the other two submissions, that letters that were sent. The whole thing about when agricultural land is developed, it is lost forever. Finally, we have the National Farmers Union. The 50 acres off Robinson Road being considered for development has been farmed for decades. Much of this acreage is valuable and irreplaceable agricultural land with Class 2 soils. It is prime agricultural land. Given that much of the county is limestone and granite with poor soil, this arable land is a precious commodity. We believe it will be short-sighted to develop this land. Once it is severed and executive homes are erected, this farmland will be lost forever. A development on this property also raises concern for farm operations on adjacent lands. We have heard from several farmers in the area who believe this development will negatively impact their operations, from upsetting their water supply to preventing farm improvements that will benefit the local economy. Development on this property is counter to the Township of Stone Mills' commitment to protect its farmland and natural heritage, under its township and county official plan. Stone Mills is deservedly known for its rural beauty and natural heritage. And while we understand that the township is under significant development pressures, as it is increasingly becoming a bedroom community for the largest cities in the region, we believe it would be short-sighted to approve any severance request. We trust the township will put the concerns of its local citizens and farmers, its commitments under the official plan, and its desire to maintain its finite farmland above any lobbying to develop this land. Finally, I would like to end with a quote from Wayne Caldwell, who's a retired professor of rural planning. He's currently a member of the Ontario Ministry of Municipal Affairs Greenbelt Council. An interesting enough long article here in the Rural Voice magazine in December. It simply says, when planning is done well, it puts a priority on agriculture. Thank you.
Did you hear what I asked you not to do, please?
I think too many came in after you had said it. Maybe you could repeat it.
I would ask that applause be withheld for this meeting. Anyone else have any comments or, yes?
Jacob Ellens, 2791 County Road 1 in Camden East. I have, in a moment, I'll introduce a neighbor, Bill Nasu. We've done up a presentation. If I may, I'd like to raise again, as a matter of introduction, a concern really about the issue of, are we really dealing here with prime agricultural land? Of course, Ms. Fenwick asked about that. We've just had a report. We've heard from Mr. Sands. We've heard from Andrew Mahosky. This is terribly important, and I think actually one of the concerns I want to raise as an introduction is that it's possible to actually get very technical about this, in which we're actually missing the point, and that is that I think that if you talk to farmers in this area, they're not going to have a lot of question whether that particular 50 acres is prime agricultural land. In fact, I had a phone call this week from a local farmer who told me something I didn't know, and that was that Mr. Galbraith years and years ago actually tiled that field. Is that farmer here in Newton Road? Okay. Well, then I'll leave that for now. I wasn't sure whether he's here, but that's important. But I think the issue here is that we're dealing with something. Last time we met in September, our chairman told a story of the rather haphazard way that, in fact, the zoning was arrived at here in this township. And so what we're dealing with is that it's a real lack of clarity about how these designations of rural and so on actually came about. So I just want to caution the committee, if I may, that things that you're doing, it's just very important that you don't lose the confidence of all the farmers in this township. Because I think that one of the things that I've been seeing and the people that I've been talking to, there's a lot of lack of confidence in our council, really in our municipal government. We're seeing that all across North America, and I'm sure that's not what you want to see happen. But I think it's utterly essential that you be in touch with the farmers, have a sense of what it is that they know about this land, which is certainly more than I would say. In any case, that's my introduction. So I think it's a difficult issue. Now so if I may, then I'd like to introduce my friend and neighbor, Mr. Bill Nasu.
My name's Bill Nasu, N-A-C-U. I live at 74 Johnson Street in Camden East, and I've done so for the last 46 years. My wife Carol and I raised 4 children in that very place, and then so I'm a concerned citizen. As I look around the committee, I see people that we have had dealings with over the years as friends, as neighbors, and in other capacities, including Theo and Penny. So this makes it a little difficult for us to be on opposite sides of the question, but hopefully it will be based on what's best for the greatest number of people. So, that said, we all realize that the future of our agricultural land and character of our rural communities will be decided by your decision about this land. I'll focus especially on the issues of protecting our farmland, but I want to make a critical comment about the way Mr. Nyberg is asking you to carve up the rich farmland he bought from Gordon Galbraith. I was struck when looking at the map, part of the amended proposal, that Mr. Nyberg is asking that he be entrusted with a retained parcel amounting to 11 hectares, more than half of the full, some 20 hectares in question. These lands, according to the proposal, are anticipated to be developed with residential uses in the future. But what kind? Luxury homes, affordable homes, single-family dwellings, apartment buildings? We don't know. When Jacob spoke to you at the last meeting, pleading that you protect the Galbraith field as agricultural land, we knew only that it had been farmed for generations as land that merited protection under the official township plan as farmland that exhibits characteristics of ongoing viable agriculture. Official plan, page 44. We did not know then whether the soil on the Galbraith land met the highest standard required for priority protection. Well, now we know. The soil in the Galbraith field is classified under the Canada Land Inventory as Class 2. It's part of the top tier of soil classifications between 1 and 3 that merit the designation prime agricultural. The Galbraith field is prime agricultural land, according to the most recent comments we hear from experts. At the September meeting, Mr. Michalski read out a letter on behalf of the Lennox and Addington Stewardship Council based on the evaluation of the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. Since then, Mr. Michalski has spoken with a map expert in the Ontario Ministry who confirmed that the soil on lots 24 and 25, that is, the Galbraith land, classifies as 2W. This means that this field, in Mr. Michalski's words, has one of the highest soil ratings for food production, despite excess moisture. This would be of no surprise to Fred Galbraith, who with his wife, Olaf Lawrence, built up their thriving farm, who considered this field his pride and joy. Let me add here that the Galbraith land is part of the wider belt of prime agricultural land. It runs from Newburgh, across County Road 4 to Curl Road. That belt is Class 2 land. In fact, some of it is Class 1 land. Mr. Nyberg has bought much of it. This summer, his land produced a field of corn 9 feet tall, as rich as any in Stone Mills Township. We are concerned for the future of this belt, as well as for the Galbraith field. Do you doubt that if you grant Mr. Nyberg's request to develop the Galbraith land, he will soon be back asking for more? That land is prime agricultural land. It's important for the future of farming in our township. It's our green belt. We ask your committee to protect it as invaluable farmland. So just to reiterate for people who may not have heard before what the protections are in law and in other policies, agricultural land in Ontario is protected under the Provincial Policy Statement, PPS, issued under Section 3 of the Planning Act of 1990. So that's an act of legislation. This is law. Protection of agricultural land in Ontario is ensured under Part 5 of the Act. The Ontario policy governing land use is the basis of both county policy and the official plan of Stone Mills Township. The provincial prescription reads as follows. Prime agricultural areas shall be protected for long-term use for agriculture. Prime agricultural areas are areas where prime agricultural lands predominate. Specialty crops, crop areas shall be given the highest priority for protection, followed by Canada Land Inventory Class 1, 2, 3 lands and any associated Class 4 through 7 lands within the prime agricultural area in this order of priority. The official plan of LNA, Lennox and Addington County, echoes the provincial plan on protecting agricultural land. It also declares special protection for the highest soil classes. The county plan insists on the protection of the county's prime agricultural area from fragmentation, development, and land uses unrelated to agriculture. It goes even further, declaring that in our county, quote, "We promote and protect all types, sizes, and intensities of agricultural uses." The official plan of Stone Mills Township uses the exact wording of the provincial policy defining agricultural land as that defined by specialty crops and the 7-part hierarchy of Canada Land Inventory classes 1, 2, 3 down through 7 in order of priority of protection. In its own words, the township plan declares, "It is the intent of this plan to preserve prime agricultural land in order to ensure its availability on a long-term basis by protecting it from incompatible uses." Do we really need to argue that building houses on prime agricultural land is an incompatible use? At the last meeting of the committee, Jason Sands indicated that council would take its primary direction on how to balance protection of agricultural land and development of housing from the province. His surprising comment caused some concern for those of us who count on our municipal government to ensure that the written commitments of our township plan and our county plan to protect agricultural land are adhered to. In this past spring and summer of 2023, the Ontario government acted in haste trying to meet the very real need for housing across the country. The Premier announced he wished to build an additional 1.5 million houses. The government introduced Bill 97, which would have allowed every farm in Ontario to ask for up to 3 severances to build houses. At the same time, it floated the idea of overhauling Ontario's land use guidelines that clearly protect farmland from development. Those Ontario planning principles, as we have seen, the foundation on which our township-based rules are based. The government was not prepared for the province-wide opposition to its attempt to water down protection of agricultural land. Farm organizations in the province, from the largest to the smallest, were unanimous in denouncing Bill 97 as the suggestions that the government might weaken provincial planning statement of 1990. Newspapers across the country announced on May 30th of this year that Ontario had abandoned its proposal to sever farm lots in order to build houses. It is surely worth noting that it was on that very day, May 30th, that Mr. Nyberg submitted his first proposal to our township to sever land for building lots on the Galbraith farmland. The weeks in which he was preparing his proposals coincided with the noises from the provincial government suggesting it was time to loosen the protection of agricultural land in favor of building houses. It must have seemed a most opportune time to Mr. Nyberg to submit his plan to take over a large farm field to build houses. When Premier Ford announced that he was giving up his plan to allow farmers through Ontario to sever farm lots to build houses, he explained that all his government had wanted to accomplish was to enable children of farm families to be able to continue to live on the family farm. We want to point out that this was the original intention a few decades ago when our own council allowed farmers to sever a few acres for the use of their own families. We are also relieved that our Premier's mistakes in land planning included initially breaking his promise not to touch the Greenbelt in the environs of Greater Toronto, have left intact the provincial planning statement of 1990, which continues to stand also in our township as a bulwark protecting prime agricultural land. Despite all the confusion and waffling that emanated from Toronto this past summer, including executive actions to centralize some zoning applications, the official written policies of our provincial government that protect farmland remain unchanged. The province continues to stand behind our township plan when it declares, "It is the intent of this plan to preserve prime agricultural land in order to ensure its availability on a long-term basis by protecting it from incompatible uses." I will let Jason Ellens conclude our presentation.
Thank you. Let me begin with this question. Why are we asking that you reject the Nyberg proposal to develop the Galbraith land? I want to begin by pointing out that we who are here this afternoon, or many of us who were here opposing this, have not come to ask you to do us a favor. We don't want even as much as a penny, if that still were legal currency. But Mr. Nyberg is here to ask for a very big favor that is worth a pretty penny, several millions of dollars, actually. We have three main objectives in coming before you. First is to make clear that we are not opposed to building houses in our township. In fact, we recognized in our original challenge in July to Mr. Nyberg's application to build on the Galbraith land that there's a housing crisis in our country. And we agree that our township ought to do its part in building houses. We recommended then, and still do, that council strike a task force or committee to designate marginal lands suitable for housing. And I should say here that we'd be very happy for Mr. Nyberg to bring proposal to council to build on marginal land. Second, it's a recommendation which I've earlier submitted to Reeve Wise that the township freeze all development in class 1, 2, and 3 farmland for 1 year, while a committee appointed by and directly responsible to council would define quote unquote prime farmland for township purposes, spend a year assessing the farmland in the township, and make recommendations to council to amend the official township plan to ensure that our bylaws and practices conform to the written guarantees in our township plan that protect prime agricultural land. It's actually very clear that there are all sorts of problems in our township and discrepancies between the promises of protecting farmland and various bylaws and practices that have happened and is causing a lot of trouble for our township. As we wait for council to declare an interim control bylaw, we encourage you to amend the motion recommended by staff that your committee, quote unquote, provisionally approves the consent applications before you. Please add one crucial condition missed by staff to the conditions that must be met for approval to come into effect, namely that it must be shown that the land to be developed is not protected prime agricultural land. Further, that the developer must make his applications for consent in keeping with the intent of the township plan, quote, this I'm quoting the township plan that we heard from Bill Nasu, to preserve prime agricultural land in order to ensure its availability on a long-term basis by protecting it from incompatible uses, end of quote. Our third reason for appearing before your committee is to remind you that you must not follow your own inclinations or your personal vision for the future of Stone Mills Township. We say with full respect for the authority delegated to you that you have an obligation to be faithful to the written land use policies of our township, our county, and our province. We know from comments that a few of you made at the September meeting regarding the Nyberg proposal that some of you believe that there's no future for agriculture in our township. Some of you believe that the best and perhaps only way that our township can thrive is to disregard our land use policies that protect farmland and to build houses to provide a reliable stream of revenue. Well, you have the right to believe what you wish and to say so. But so long as you speak for our township as a member of a committee with delegated authority granted by our elected council, you are obliged to abide by the township's rules. If you believe times have changed and we should stop protecting prime agricultural land from development, you're free to run for council in the next municipal election and to call for the development of a new township plan that ends the protection of farmland. Believe me, we would fight that tooth and nail, but we would respect you for being upfront about your plans. But please don't act as if the language in our township plan, which mandates that prime agricultural land is to be protected as farmland in perpetuity, are merely vague and pious general sentiments. They are not. They are clear principles that direct us how we must use the land and protect it for future generations. Here, I'm a retired historian, so let me give a little bit of historical context. We're part of an old and venerable Anglo-Canadian framework of law that sets us apart from authoritarian and totalitarian states. Our rule of law and limits to the authority of government stretch back at least to the year 1215, when King John of England granted the Magna Carta, agreeing that his authority to rule was limited by agreements he had made with the great nobles in England. That framework of laws, limiting the power of the executive, the king, has been developing for the past 808 years, to be exact, actually, and was gifted to us by the United Empire Loyalists who settled just south of this land in 1784. As a result, In Canada today, our constitutional monarch signs into law legislation he may not personally agree with. Our Parliament and Prime Minister are expected to submit to our Constitution. Our municipal government and township officials, similarly, are bound to make decisions regarding land use that are consistent with our official plan. What all this means for the decisions you make tonight about Mr. Nyberg's proposal is that if you grant his request, you will be disregarding township guarantees afforded to protect farmland. If you ignore the township commitment to protect farmland, essentially, you'll be choosing to carry out your own wishes instead. This will weaken our social fabric. That's kind of abstract. Let me make it very concrete. An example of how this hurts farmers. Many farm families today are engaged in succession planning. The uncertainty whether council will actually stand behind the written commitments of our township plan to protect farmland removes essential guarantees that are needed to plan. How can farmers count on farmland remaining affordable or even available? Such fundamental uncertainties make it difficult, if not impossible, for farmers to plan for the next generation. A couple of concluding words. Should you decide to agree to Mr. Nyberg's request to disregard our township's protection of farmland, this is not the so-called thin edge of the wedge toward ending protection of farmland in our township. This is the full wedge. Our system of law is based on precedent. If you allow Mr. Nyberg to take some of the best farmland in our township to build houses, when the next developer comes, say in a year from now, to ask that he be allowed to take 30 acres of valuable farmland to build houses, your committee won't need to deliberate. There'll be only one thing left to say. Go ahead, help yourself. We're open for development. It's a bad joke in Stone Mills Township, isn't it? Most of our almost 8,000 residents aren't even aware that you are considering allowing a large field of prime land to be developed for housing. Nor did anyone tell them that an unelected 5-person committee might be on the verge of throwing out our township land use policy. Earlier this summer, when I talked with a good number of people to alert them to what was being contemplated for the Galbraith land, one lifelong resident who gladly signed on to the letter of appeal that I sent to Mr. Sands in July replied to me that although he supported my attempt to stop this desecration of our best farmland, he had no confidence that our council would pay any attention to our protest. I shall not soon forget his cynical words about our municipal government, and these are his words, not mine. They're just going to do what they want to do. I challenged him and a number of people who had gathered together to be patient. I told them that I believed that if we laid out our concerns intelligently and respectfully and showed that our township plan clearly protects our agricultural land, we could stop this ill-considered proposal for development. My sincere hope is that you will think carefully before you give in to Mr. Nyberg's request. First, please examine whether there are not other ways to build needed houses. We ask that you consider whether some of the marginal land which we have in abundance in our township may be suited for house building before we snatch the low-hanging fruit of very scarce prime agricultural land, or if you will, land that's classification 2. Second and lastly, before you vote, please look up at the portrait of our late Queen Elizabeth II, who never in her long reign forgot the lesson of Magna Carta, that even the Queen is not above the law. I shall be very grateful if after your vote, I can walk by the monument in St. Luke's churchyard of Fred Adam Galbraith and his wife, Ola Florence, and be able to tell them that their field, his pride and joy, will continue into perpetuity producing rich crops, corn this year and perhaps soybeans in the next. As importantly, I want to tell my politically disillusioned neighbor that this committee did not go ahead to write, in effect, its own land use policy, but agreed to abide by the protection of agricultural land guaranteed by our township plan. Thank you. If I may, I can hand out a copy of this.
Okay, we've heard from different ones in the audience. Yes? Back at the back, raise your hand up. Would you come up and join us, please, and state your name and your address?
Edward Embry, R number 1 Newburgh 30 Embry Road. Is this on?
You're on.
So I'm here tonight because of the comment was made and brought me out that there's no future in farming in Stone Mills Township. And that's what you say. I would have to say that's a hard load of crap. I'm here to tell you why every inch of good dirt is important in Stone Mills Township for our future farming needs. And that this housing development must be stopped dead if we want to continue to have prosperous farming food network in Stone Mills Township. Consider these 5 thoughts. Number 1, you have 3 local markets that never existed 10 years ago. The Yarker, Newburgh, and now Beaver Lake. Each of these bring food from our local community and allow local farms to thrive. Each of these markets, vendors, will need more future inputs to continue to supply that local food need in the future. This farmland is a very important element of these markets for future process. 2, that you have one of the largest egg culture roads in Ontario in Newburgh. Both farms have an egg culture output that is staggering. Both farms will have future growth and need future grain inputs that need to be supplied right here in Stone Mills. Our family farm uses 6,500 tons of grain per year to feed its livestock. We need 3,200 acres to supply that grain input need. Plus, we need 550 acres of hay acreage for our needs. There is not 3,750 acres in our present area. Therefore, every acre counts close to home. We like to gather our needs for our livestock as close to home as we can. Less trucking, less handling, less costs, and it keeps jobs and economy going right here in Stone Mills. The grain from the parcel land being proposed for development came to our grain elevator in Newburgh to help feed our livestock. The parcel would produce 200 tons of corn yearly. 3, the statement that there is no future for farming in Stone Mills could not be more false. Though we have seen a decrease in milk and beef farms, we have seen a very sharp increase in crop farming over the past years in Stone Mills. The world needs for grain as both food and fuel and other processes have risen sharply. Stone Mills grain output is now a very large portion of our local farms' prosperity here. Taking acres to build homes on here just doesn't make sense for us farmers. 4, consider the second farm in Newburgh. My estimate is that they would use 35,000 tons of grain per year. Consider the acreage needed to grow that. With rising costs of fuel, the future could be that it would be more economical to have this grain grown closer to home. Again, we need all the good dirt right here in Stone Mills for a farm's future than to build homes over it. 5, each time some development like this happens, it increases the value of farmland locally. Farmers are very upset that when they need local farmland to expand their needs, they're outbid by developers who build homes over this land. Many of our local farmers also are unhappy to see that land that should be continued to be farmed have a home built in the middle of a field. Is there no common sense at Stone Mills Council or at this severance committee? Therefore, the policy by Stone Mills has been to protect has to be to protect farmland, to protect farmland. My thoughts on this proposal. 1, has the developer done an MDS calculation? Considering that there's a very large livestock barn in the immediate area, the calculation should not be on the present livestock house, but the square footage of the barn, 6,000 square feet, which could be used for large farming business in the future. Therefore, the project must not be passed until a proper calculation has happened. 2, guidelines on permitted use in Ontario Prime's Agriculture Areas, Publication 51. Have you taken into account everything in this publication for this development? It states, before considering new or expanding settlements areas and prime agriculture areas, municipalities must demonstrate that there are insufficient opportunities for development within existing settlement areas or on rural lands. Has this been done? 3, the fact is that many of the other Ontario municipalities have put in place their planning protection for farmland. You just can't do what is being imposed here in our municipality. 4, has Stone Mills Council and its severance committee overlooked the importance of the carbon footprint of this farmland? I would say yes. And it's another very important reason this housing development needs to be stopped. So how much carbon dioxide does an acre of Stone Mills Township corn absorb in a growing season? That is a question that is often asked, and the answer may surprise many people. The calculations show that number to be in excess of 36,000 pounds of carbon dioxide per acre. At 200 bushel per acre corn, every acre of corn absorbs 8 tons of carbon dioxide. Farmland fields keep clean, help clean up and protect the environment. Housing developments do not. The housing sector is one of the largest contributors to Ontario's greenhouse gas emissions. It contributes 23% of total greenhouse gas emissions of the province, second only to transportation. Putting homes on farmland would result in a very negative carbon footprint in our community, as you can see. I suggest the following: that Stone Mills Council implement the following policy and develop a plan which would be called the Farmland Preservation Plan. It would read, the township values its agriculture character and economy. Agriculture forms a significant component of the township's economical base and provides an important source of employment. It also facilitates people's access to locally grown food and contributes to the overall strength and the vitality of the rural community. In recognition of these and other community benefits, the policy of this plan establishes a framework to maintain and improve the continuity of the township's agricultural land base and to protect agricultural lands for long-term agriculture use. Why do we need such a plan? Ontario's prime agricultural land is an infinite non-renewable resource that compresses less than 5% of Ontario's land base. With the growing rate of farmland loss in the province, currently at the rate of 319 acres per day, it is more important than ever before that the township protects our prime agriculture areas. Ontario's farmland directly supports the ag food sector, which is the largest economical sector in the province, and this township employing more than 750,000 Ontarians along the supply chain and annually contributing over $47 billion to the province GDP3. It is also my concern about Ontario's proposed Bill 4.3.3, which would prevent the severance of 3 residential lots from parcels in prime agriculture areas. This proposes a significant threat to long-term viability of the agriculture sector. As it currently reads, this policy could apply to any parcel of agricultural land, regardless of its size or whether it was previously severed from January 2023. Given that there are 48,346 farms, as many as 170 farmland properties in Ontario, the province could see anywhere from 145,000 to 510,000 lots severed from agriculture properties. Therefore, if each lot is approximately 1 acre in size, this policy alone would be responsible for removing anywhere from 1.2% to 4% of Ontario's agricultural land base. But what I see and hear happening in Stone Mills Township is exactly what is being proposed above, with no regard to farmland. Farmland being defaced with lots ripped off the frontal roadside and homes being built in the middle of farm fields. This practice has to stop immediately. Therefore, until Stone Mills Council and the Severance Committee gets direction from council, this Camden housing proposal and any other proposed farmland severances have to be put on hold before this committee. We simply don't have enough dirt in Stone Mills to continue to support our present future farmers.
Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Berhodsky. And I'm, full disclosure, I'm not currently a resident of the Township of Stone Mills. I'd like to say that I was a long-term resident, but I've been told that unless you have 3 or 4 generations in the local graveyard, that you're not considered a long-term resident. But I have to tell you that the years living in Stone Mills, in Camden East in particular, were probably the happiest of my life. And I care greatly about this particular community. And I have lots of friends who are here tonight, and I'm hoping to be able to support them in their opposition to this proposal. Now, I'm not going to speak about the things that have already been spoken about, though I'm in total agreement with everything that has been said. What I wanted to address is a couple of other issues, which I'm taking from a letter that I hope went out. I'm sorry that I only got the letter out at the last minute today, because I had eye surgery on Friday, and things have been a little bit topsy-turvy for me. And I may even read funny, actually, because my eyes aren't tracking properly. So one thing I wanted to address was the consent policies in the township official plan. And one of them, under the section 7.5.2, which is the general consent policies of the Stone Mills official plan, Part B states, and I'm going to quote here, consents should have the effect of infilling in existing developed areas or result in the rounding out of developed areas and not of unduly extending development areas. End of quote. The Robinson Road land is clearly outside the boundaries of Camden East, and the development proposal does not attempt to consider the possible availability of land within the hamlet or between already developed lots. Therefore, in my opinion, it contradicts this policy requirement. Part C states, consents shall not be granted where the effect is to create strip development or have the effect of extending strip development and thereby hindering the development of the rear of the property. The proposal of 6 lots in a row, in addition to a retained portion of undisclosed future use along Robinson Road, is clearly a strip development. It may not have a rear property that is hindered, but that's because of the odd, elongated, seigneurial shape of the lots, which we're familiar with from Quebec when the farming lots along the St. Lawrence were continually subdivided in order to accommodate children of the farming families, and they got narrower and narrower and narrower, but they all wanted access to the river, so they were kept long. Anyway, those were seigneurial lots. And these lots have very narrow frontages on the road. The proposed lot widths of 65 feet and 60 feet are extremely narrow when one pictures the type of house that a potential buyer might want to build after paying a substantial price for 2 hectares of land. When you factor in the proposed lot lengths of 319 to 365 feet, the channel-like proportions are ridiculous. No wonder member Aberhart was opposed. My own lot in Napanee is 70 feet wide. My little 40-foot bungalow and 16-foot wide garage barely fit into this with only a few feet to spare on either side beyond the roof overhangs. Luckily, I have a right-of-way access to the rear of my property, or there would be no way to bring in gardening supplies, materials, machinery, etc., to landscape or maintain the property. Also, the awkwardness of the shape and size of the lots and their strip configuration present a lack of aesthetics and do not contribute to the rural appeal that the township official plan frequently refers to and promises to value and promote. Another quote from Part D. Severances should not be considered on large multi-parcel reference plans or on lands which are subject to a subdivision application. The Galbraith land of 20 hectares, or about 50 acres, consists of 2, and I've heard also 3 large parcels on Robinson Road, parts of lots 24 and 25. Clearly, little thought has been given to careful planning It appears as a rushed last-minute job in laying out these lots. Indeed, Mr. Nyberg purchased the land only a couple of weeks before submitting his application. In applying for consent severance, it appears as though the developer wishes to avoid the effort and expense of doing it properly, with attention given to water resources, access, waste systems, visual buffering, services, layout, and so on. As a multi-parcel application, shouldn't a plan of subdivision be required? In fact, no real plan has been presented. How will this land be used? How will the buildings be placed on these oddly shaped lots? What is the eventual plan for the large retained portion of 11 hectares? Is this application purely with the intention of a quick flip? I do not feel comfortable in entrusting the future of these lands to Mr. Nyberg's yet undisclosed plans or vision. I doubt there is any vision other than financial gain here. And it is at the expense of the loss of the very productive farmland and the rural nature of the hamlet. It is also a dangerous precedent that will lead to more of the same. It's the slippery slope. In approving this application, the committee would be making a leap of faith that in actuality forfeits control of future development. Okay, now I'm going to skip a lot of stuff that I had written because it's already been talked about. But I want to address another issue, and that is community. The hamlets in this township provide a wonderful and vibrant sense of community that is often lacking in urban or suburban communities. We have a mental health crisis in this country. We have a population which, despite boasting great connectivity through our use of social media and technology, includes significant numbers of people who feel lonely and isolated. Small communities like Camden East embrace and care for all residents, no matter their financial or social status. We look out for our neighbors. And no communities look out for their neighbors better than farming communities. Yet farmers in Stone Mills feel under siege. There is a myth that housing development brings increased revenue to a township. And I understand that Stone Mills struggles to sustain financial viability. I do appreciate their plight in facing mounting odds. I really do. But a recent study from Guelph University reported that development, particularly poorly planned, minimally regulated development, for example, strip development, actually increases the tax burden on commercial, industrial, and agricultural components of the base. You need to look no further than Prince Edward County to see how developers have catered to the wealthy, to those who seek the delights of a rural life and flee the urban environment to set up their own private Edens and rarely become part of the community that made the enticing rural environment in the first place. The original residents cannot afford the soaring taxes, and the local government is struggling to stay solvent in providing for the increased expectations and demands for services to the new clientele. Perhaps the county is an extreme example, but our time will come as that county fills up. Napanee has recently declared a moratorium on development as it has maxed out its water supply and sewage treatment capacities. I call upon all committee members to responsibly apply the spirit and the wording of the Stone Mills official plan in making your decision tonight. As well, I have three what I consider great suggestions, which I think have the potential to serve our township well. The first one is make a motion, and I think this has been already stated, but pardon me if I repeat it, to request that council enact an interim control bylaw that effectively postpones approval of the current and future applications for development of farmland in the township. Effective for, say, maybe 6 months, 1 year, or whatever time it takes until the council has effectively studied the issue of farmland protection and suitable alternative locations for residential development. Suggestion number 2. Investigate the possibility of instituting policy to attract immigration that is amenable to farming. Some farmers have a legitimate concern in that their heirs, if they have any, may not be interested in farming. One can understand the temptation to sell to developers. Stone Mills could be a leader in proposing provincial government programs and incentives to facilitate the acquisition of land by those immigrants with experience and a willingness to farm. Not only immigrants, but young people across the province or the country who might want to start farming. There are many of those, but they don't have the money to purchase lands at the great costs that they are going for right now. This isn't a new idea. Historically, it has been done in the form of homesteading. In fact, I am a granddaughter. I'm a granddaughter of a homesteader. I'm also the daughter of an immigrant. It's time that we prioritized immigration that responds to our needs as a nation. The production of food is a 1 need. And my third suggestion is vote against approval of the application by 165-273 Ontario Limited. It's a flawed plan. And I thank you so much for listening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, my address is 6 James Street, Napanee.
My name is Don Yeomans. I live at 1090 Nugent Road, approximately 1.5 miles from this said property. I'm a 5th generation farmer, and every generation has made a living farming. I still do today off the land. It's a shame to see this, and I consider it prime farmland, go under gravel and pavement. It's gone forever. Many years ago, after Mr. Galbraith bought this land, and my dad helped him clear some of the fence rows, he decided to tile drain it. Tile drainage was new at the time. Nobody was doing it. It was very expensive, as it is today. And no farmer then or today would spend the money tile draining land that wasn't productive. Anybody who's driven by that property a lot knows it is good farmland. I have a gentleman sitting behind me that has farmed it for a few years. He does an excellent job. The crops have been good. I'm hoping he'll speak to that effect here tonight. Mr. Chairman, are you voting on this tonight? We elect council members to represent our best interests, and they appoint you, I believe. So you have an opportunity to vote in our best interest this evening, and you can tell by the delegation behind me what our interest is. So keep that in mind and protect our farmland. Thank you.
Okay, we've heard quite a few here this evening. I feel that the committee has got to be in a position to make a decision. I will ask the applicants if they have anything to say before we go.
Good evening. I just want to reiterate and
State your name.
sorry.
Your name.
Emil Nyberg. I'm one of the applicants together with my father at
Address.
7137 Kenner Road 9, Napanee.
Thank you.
So I just want to reiterate, as Member Fenwick mentioned, it is designated rural land. It is not designated farmland. I understand it is farmed, but that doesn't mean that the designation is prime agricultural. I appreciate all the comments everybody's saying, and I understand their level of interest, let's put it that way. I feel that if there's concern that there should be more designated prime agricultural land, I encourage them to go ahead and get theirs rezoned to, sustain that land for the future for themselves or however they see fit. But as it is right now, we are where we are, and it is zoned rural. Like you mentioned, there is 3 independent parcels that I, so to speak, could sell independently from each other. But after that, I'm going to let the planner here take it away. He is more technical.
Thank you. My name is Lindsay Mills. I'm a registered planner. I have been for over 30 years. And about the agricultural designation, we rely on the Minister of Ag, Food and Rural Affairs to tell us what the designation is, what the class of soil is. And whenever we do an official plan update, we ask for their comments. It's circulated to the various ministries on all types of matters. And they provide feedback as to how we designate our schedules in the LP. So as Mr. Sands, the planner, has stated, even the new official plan has it designated as rural lands. So we just have to rely on those rules that are passed down by the ministry in terms of agricultural designation. And this is designated rural, not prime ag. So.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, committee members, I guess we've heard from both sides here now. I would entertain a motion either to approve or disallow. I need a mover and a seconder.
Sorry, does the other gentleman need to come back in?
No.
I'll call it again. I need a mover and a seconder either to approve or deny. Yes, Marilyn?
I'll make the motion to approve based on what is happening at today, this moment in time. Prime Ag is not what this property is according to official plan. And I have to go by those guidelines. Changes can be made, and I'm guilty of not looking at what was happening in the official plan when it was being updated and was just passed a couple of weeks ago. So I have to follow what is there.
When that official plan, sorry, my name is Sean Scrimshaw, 14 Bethel.
Hold on, you just wait your turn, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a mover. I need a seconder. Seconded by Robert.
As Marilyn says, the criteria set forth, we have to go by it. I would suggest that you have to talk to council first to try to change their mind, or your members of parliament in this area. You would have right of their head, because they're the ones that can change the rules, not us. We have no choice. If we turn this down, Mr. Nyberg will take it to court, and he will win his case, and the township will pay him a lot of bucks, $100,000. The legal fence.
I'll let you speak.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairperson Nancy. My question was more,
Your name and address, please.
Sean Scrimshaw, 14 Bethel Road, Yarker. I'm actually down the corner opposite from the plan development. My question is, when the official plan was put into motion and was maintained as rural, was the Ontario government invited with the Ministry of Agriculture to look at soil classification and agree and say, yes, it should stay rural? Or did they put any input into it and say, perhaps it should be changed to primate?
Go ahead, Jason.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a great question, sir. There were several provincial ministries that were circulated on our official plan update that took nearly 3 years to complete. We did not receive comment from OMAFRA, nor MMAH, nor any of the provincial agencies with respect to redesignating any lands within our jurisdiction from a rural designation to a greater protection of prime ag. Currently, on Schedule A, if you consult our official plan from 2014, as well as that was just recently adopted, sir, you'll see the continuation of the same lands in the Moscow area. I believe there's 400, 500 acre plus or minus that's protected prime agricultural lands. Our policy set, section 442 of the official plan, provides really direct policy set for us staff to review when assessing what's a rural designated land versus a prime agricultural designated land. And that's to the point of where we're directed based on this application suite. So on the screen, the dark green area northwest of Moscow is the prime ag is largely the sum of the prime ag designated lands within our jurisdiction.
Yes, Marilyn?
May I make one more comment? Going forward, I'm sure there are farmers in this crew here that would like to know how they can get their farmlands designated prime ag. I am not a farmer. I don't know how to go about that, but perhaps our planners or Mr. Clancy could clarify how those people could get guidance to do that if they wish to prevent these things from happening.
Do you want to answer that, Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. My first comment to that end is it's a consultation process with OMAFRA. It's not, to Member Fenwick's point, I'm not a soil scientist, I'm not an agrologist, I'm a land use planner that works from a policy set that we're afforded to by the respective agencies. The agencies of OMAFRA, for example, are who we lean upon in giving us this guidance. And I can most definitely work with anybody here in this municipality to assist in making those connections. That being said, the newest official plan update was just recently finalized. So it's typically a 5-year cycle in which you reconsider an official plan amendment. That being said, I see no concern with moving that an expedited timeframe should there be requests and consultation exercises completed for a redesignation consideration.
Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, as regards to the official plan that was just adopted, you said just recently, when was that? When was it finalized? Sorry?
Some of this, I'm just looking at it.
It was recent.
Yes.
So after we put in the initial,
Okay, we have one.
proposal against this application, I mean, this is talked about in September.
October 11th.
So
So that was post our original objection to this application on the basis that it was farmland.
I can't hear. I'm sorry.
Members of this community stated an objection to the plan on the basis that it was. On now? Okay. Members of this community have stated an objection in September at the last Committee of Adjustment meeting, suggesting that this was farmland and should not be developed. And so this official plan was finalized since then.
through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, my colleague is looking up the date
Okay.
as we speak, but
Okay,
yes.
and on top
Yeah.
of that, I introduced some objections here based on consent grants that had really nothing to do with farmland, but had to do with official policy. And I was stating that this application contravenes those members of those regulations of your official plan. And that's in the letter that I sent out to all members of the committee. Thank you.
Yes. Once and that's it.
I have a follow-up question to the one that was just asked. I mean, since a number of us were at the September 27 meeting, and I guess I'd like to hear from Mr. Sands, who's our manager of development services. If the plan was officially changed since the time that we met with you in September, I'm surprised that you didn't notify us that there were, you could have been a great help to us if you could have told us that the plan now would look very different and it might have changed the way we approached you. End of my question.
Is that a question or a comment, sir?
No, the question is, Mr. Sands, if you knew that the plan had changed, can you tell us why you did not notify any of us who appeared before this committee in September 27?
So I was attempting, through you, Mr. Chair, I was attempting to provide an answer and I was interrupted. The Township of Stone Mills Council approved the official plan update approximately a year and a half, September 19th, 2022. It's been in the hands of the County of Lennox and Addington, who is the approval authority for official plan documents at the lower tiers in the province of Ontario since that time. It's been out for public comment through that entire time, and it's been maintained on our website for that entirety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Wayne?
Two quick things. One, I don't need that. Do I need that? No, for sure. Two things. One, seems like it's disconnected, but when I look into the dump situation, last 2022, 35% increase in volume. And that's from just the folks that are buying and building now. So peripheral issue. I go back to when Mr. Tunick was the planner, way back. Bob would remember that. And Bob admitted himself to this knee-jerk reaction that took place, and that's what it was, because you couldn't do a thing in Stone Mills Township. And then Tunick and Eric Smith and some others went around, and the next thing you know, literally, the next thing you know, Moscow's protected and nothing else is. So this problem goes a long way back with no definitive ranking of the kinds of property, the kinds of qualities. Do we see any commitment here tonight from this group of people to get that work done? I wrote several years ago saying we're not ready, and I feel for the developer as well. We're not ready. We are not ready, and that puts pressure on Jason and everybody else because they've got to go by the regulations that are there. But we're not ready. We're not ready with our dump capacities. We're not ready with a study that says where are the lands that won't give rise to problems? Where are those places that have enough soil to be safe for houses, but not so much that it's wonderful farming? And that's got to be a committee. I don't know if you guys can take recommendations somewhere else, but somebody's got to do what was mentioned earlier tonight, and that is get this fixed. Get a handle on where in heaven's name farmers and developers could realistically know they should be putting their houses. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Bob?
I think it's up to this group here, the folks council, for any changes they want. We cannot recommend changes, they do not do changes. We follow exactly what they put down. I suggest you get after your councils and federal, provincial ministers and get this sorted out. Work a little much farther, the whole situation in the township.
Just brief comment. I think it's up to the town council to accommodate the recommendations from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture in terms of how soil should be classified and how you should, and you take your lead from that. It's not up to the individual farmer to ask for a reclassification of their farm, which is how we got into this problem in the first place years ago, because it seemed to be, well, I want my land to be rural because I want to sell it, or I want my land to be prime agriculture, whatever. It's not up to the individual farmer. This is a provincial matter, and you should take your cue from that. Just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. No, I'm not taking any more comments from the audience. I was on the committee back when,
We pay taxes in this township, so we got nothing to say about it.
Sorry, may I ask a question? Jason,
I asked for my turn, okay?
may I ask a question, please?
No,
Let her speak, sir.
Is it regarding the significant groundwater recharge area, which we did not hear very much about tonight since Mr. Digger's comments? And Jason said that you're requesting a hydrological study. The comments from last meeting say due to groundwater sensitivity in the area and resultant density of lots, the assessment will need to be completed to the township standard for a full hydrological investigation. Is that the case? Is it required that there's an investigation, or is it a request? I was also looking at other conservation authorities in the province which state
that no development should happen in significant groundwater recharge. So, as I take my drinking water from that area, I would like to have an answer to that question. And I think that that's the most significant question on the table.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's a recommendation of staff that that be completed. There's been no decision rendered. It's in the notice of decision that's been recommended by staff. So we don't have a decision yet for me to confirm to you that that's a requirement of the applicant or not at this time.
Okay, we have a motion by Marilyn, seconded by Bob to approve. I would ask for a recorded vote, and I would ask Randy for the poll of the committee. Go ahead, Brandy.
Okay, I'll start in alphabetical order of last name. So member Fenwick,
Yes.
member Ugera,
Yes.
member Surgeon,
Yes.
and member Clancy.
Reluctantly, I have to agree, yes.
Motion's passed.
As you all know, I was a farmer at one time. Begrudgingly, I had to vote that way because of the rules and regs that are before us. Like member Surgeon stated that Mr. Nyberg could appeal this, and it would cost the municipality a lot of money, and that's our tax dollars. If you want would you sit down, please? I'm speaking. It's my quarter right now. It's my quarter right now. We do. We have.
Listen more.
We have.
Listen more to the people. No one wants to listen to you. Listen to us. Listen to the ones who live in this fucking town. Seriously. No, I'm not gonna sit down. No, I'm not gonna sit down. What are you gonna do? Seriously, this is ridiculous. These are all people here who live in this community. So what? You're a farmer. Who cares? You don't care about any of this. You don't give a shit.
Okay,
You're an elected official. You don't care.
I'm not elected.
Well, then great. Then listen to the people.
So what I wanted to say was, you were saying that you were a farmer, but you were the one that made all of this disappear. You and a buddy of yours went along and made all of this disappear and allowed this to happen.
We had the member from the ministry was here and approved it, okay? And
Yes.
council approved it.
On your recommendation
Yes,
to approve you. And how many farmers were involved in that?
everybody got notice. There was a meeting, 2 different meetings in this hall, and taxpayers and property owners came.
I don't
And,
believe that any of these people would agree with you whatsoever.
my wife doesn't agree with me part of the time, so it's no big deal.
Excuse me, could I make a comment that you will not find objectionable? But I think that everybody here knows that I want desperately to save the farmland. I think what I want to say, though, is that I think we're at a point which most of us agree. We think that this is wrong. It's morally wrong, but it does follow, technically it follows the law. What we need to do as people who are residents of this township is that we need to go to our council. We need to make it very clear that things have to change. We need to see to it that actually that there's no discrepancy between the promises of saving farmland and the fact that there aren't bylaws that spell that out what that means. That needs to change. And it also has to happen that in the next municipal election, it has to be very, very clear that we will not elect councilors who are not totally committed to saving farmland. That's got to happen. It's a political thing. But right now, I think that we're in a situation where it is the case that this is a meeting. It has to follow rules of order. Our chairman does have the right to tell us when we can speak and when we can't. So I believe as passionately as you do, but I think that we need to follow those rules and then take the political route, and we need to change this. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well put. Okay, severance. Severance, B 20 dash 2023, yes. Okay. Yeah, Jason, I will turn it over to you, B 20.
May I ask one quick question? for
Just
clarification?
a minute, please.
Apologies for my language, everybody, but I still stand by every single word that I said.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I understand we're proceeded to B20 2023, which pertains to parcel A2 on the map in front of us on the wall. As you can see, it's very similar in shape and configuration, located on the west side of an unopened road allowance running north-south between Robinson Road and the Cataraqui Way Trail. Slightly larger in area, with 2.2 hectares in size, with approximately 220 feet of road frontage, 65 meters of road frontage. The easement that we discussed in the previous file still remains applicable, and this would form essentially the second parcel of the proposed severed and retained parcels on the western portion of the unopened municipal road allowance. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a recommendation on the committee's agenda from staff and technical review agencies provided review respecting this application. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my question is approval.
Please.
Excuse me. Does your approval of, is your approval of this contingent on a hydrogeological study of the area? Is that going to be attached to as a condition of your approval?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the first decision, B19 2023, had the recommendation included within. I understood it was approved with no modification or amendment to the recommendation, and that included a full hydrogeological assessment.
So you're
We did,
saying, yes, there is that is part of it? Is that what you're saying in just layperson's language?
Yes.
Yes.
Ready, members have any questions or concerns on this one? Any comments from, yes, Bob?
Is this how you agree for every lot?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, notwithstanding a lot addition. One of the proposals before you this evening is for a lot addition, Member Surgeon, and a lot addition is not a new lot creation, as we know, and that's a boundary adjustment. So it's indifferent on that case.
The hydro-G is quite a study. The wells that are drilled are pump tested, and if any of the neighbors feel that their wells should be monitored, it will be done for them at no charge. The drawdown, the recovery will all be recorded. Yes, sir.
Now, is that for every well on each lot? Because there's multiple wells on each.
Yes.
So every well needs. To
Yes. There is a lot of conditions that connected to these severances that they have to go through before approval is given.
So I read the conditions, and one of them is a wall at the end of my property that had to be redone. And I'm guessing to be redone, it needs to be enlarged in size, which would take up part of my farm field. Is that anything that the township can say about it? Like, I know there's a road allowance here, they can take up the road allowance, but as far as approaching on my land and take up more area, can the township do that?
That will be negotiable with the road superintendent. Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Jeff Thompson, our Public Works Manager, is actually here this evening, and he provided comment to this end. some of the comments that have been included or recommendations within this come directly from the Public Works Department. I don't want to speak for Jeff. I'll let him, he's here, he can speak to it. My understanding is typically we fit cul-de-sac bulbs on municipal right-of-ways. They don't necessitate extensions of municipal right-of-way widths. That being said, I'm not a public works manager, so I'll let Mr. Thompson clarify.
Thanks, Jason, through you. Yeah, the bulb would stay on the municipal right-of-way, so it would not go on adjacent lands.
I need a motion to approve or deny. Yes, Marilyn? Move to approve, seconded by Aaron. Any further discussion, concerns? I will ask for a recorded vote again. Brandy, will you poll the committee, please?
Member Fenwick, yea or nay?
Yay.
Member Ugera?
Yay.
Member Surgeon?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes,
Motion's passed.
motion's carried unanimously. B 21-2023, Jason, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Application B21 2023 pertains to parcel B on the sketch on the screen. This is the first parcel being proposed on the east side of the unopened municipal road allowance running north-south from Robinson to the Cataraqui Trail. This is an application that's been amended since the original submission, in the sense that it was shortened in length. The proposed lot to be subdivided is to measure 1 hectare in area, with maintaining 60 meters of road frontage, which is the minimum requirement of the Township of Stone Mills zoning bylaw. I have nothing further to add. I'm happy to answer any questions that may be applicable to this property.
Committee members have any questions or concerns? Yes.
Yes. Steve Sweet, I live on
Would you step up to the microphone, please?
Yeah, Stephen Sweet, 57.
State your name and address, please.
That's what I'm doing, sir. Stephen Sweet is my name, 57 Queen Victoria Road in Camden East is my address. I'd had a question for Jason on this one. Parcel B, we're talking about keeping everything, like they're saying there's 3 separate parcels. And I just had a question with section B here. There's only 85 meters of right-of-way in that section, but you're taking 60 and retaining of 25. I know it's getting added to the adjacent piece to give you enough for a lot, but how is that being added? Like if I just own that piece myself, I wouldn't be able to do that. And yet you're treating this all as individuals, but then is this being treated all as one in this way?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a great question. The recommendation before the committee as it relates to B21, which is parcel B, is that the entirety of the retained portion be merged on title with the piece to the east. So if this application were approved and the 1 hectare that's being proposed to be severed is severed, it's not legally able to be finalized until what's retained is merged on title with the parcel to the east, thereby ensuring that it's 25, measuring 25 meters of road frontage could never become a separately conveyable parcel.
So if that parcel was there on itself, you couldn't divide it that way. But yet we're looking at this as supposedly individual parcels, but yet we're not because we're amalgamating it with C. The way you've got it drawn up there. Is that a legal way of sorting that out?
Maybe I can point at the screen, your chair, to. So severed parcel B is this parcel where.
Yeah, I understand.
60 meters of frontage. I believe the parcel boundary of this central parcel abuts the Vine Open Road allowance to the west, and it's in this area here to the east.
Mhm.
So your 25 meters of road frontage would be left over or retained if this parcel is subdivided as proposed. The condition that's included within this recommendation is that all of this and this be merged with this parcel here before that, or as that is created. So that cannot function or be transferred to your ownership or anybody else's without it merging onto this parcel. So there's
So in-
a legal mechanism to ensure that that happens.
So in reality, you're treating B and C almost as one in this case. But yet you're not, in order to get your severances through. That's all I just wanted to document. Because the whole idea of limiting the number is to do the 3, so you can get your severance without doing a subdivision. And you're kind of massaging that a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, through you, I understand what you're saying. The 3 severances plus retained per parcel, you're saying is being favorably interpreted to
Yes.
ensure that that scheme can happen because of it being a separate parcel. I disagree in the sense that it's in my own language of favorably interpreted in the sense that the land holding east of the unopened road allowance is proposed to be subdivided in a total of 4 parcels, three smaller parcels and 1 larger retained parcel. So 3 plus retained, which would be this consistent policy interpretation if that were 1 parcel. So the number that we're considering through this scheme would be consistent if all the land on the east side of that road allowance were 1 or 2 parcels.
That's your opinion, yeah. Okay. I guess the only other question I had, this is on the Schedule C, our source protection drawing that we have, with this being a high-risk area. And we're going to do the hydrological. Is there any requirement, or how come we wouldn't look for a environmental impact report? Or to make sure that, there is some water areas up, marshy areas up near the front, to ensure that they are protected or kept, as opposed to somebody just filling them in?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the environmental impact study or environmental impact assessment, according to our official plan, the direction of when the municipality requests one is related to the natural hazard or natural heritage policies. And we get that direction from the Conservation Authority. With respect to that water course that I think you're discussing on the north side of this farm parcel, it's being considered a man-made ditch by the Conservation Authority, so not identified as a natural hazard or a natural heritage feature. So we didn't have the direction or recommendations of the Conservation Authority, nor did we have it based on our policy intent to necessitate an environmental impact assessment.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for this. Moved by Marilyn to approve. Do I have a seconder? Aaron? Any further discussion? I'd ask you to poll the committee again, please, Brandy.
Member Fenwick,
Yay.
Member Ugera,
Yay.
Member Surgeon,
Yes.
Member Clancy,
Yes,
it's passed.
approved. Big 22-2023, Jason.
I have one question before we carry on. The road right away is there, they're usually 40 feet. What happens when you have to make the road the required width? The little lots all just move back north.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we're talking about the north-south road unopened road allowance, Member Surgeon? I don't believe, and we can double check, pull up the recommendation, that we're requesting that the owner provide a road widening on that north-south road allowance to widen it to a 66-foot road widening, road allowance.
And when roads open up, is it not all not mandatory to do that?
Is it not mandatory to widen to a 66? Again, you're asking really good questions of my colleague, Mr. Thompson. I know we have 40-foot road allowances in the municipality and 66, but I'll defer to Mr. Thompson.
So you're talking about the maintain Robinson Road section now? The road allowance? No, it'll stay as just a road allowance. There's no requirements to open it up. Yeah. But the maintain portion, we asked for the setback on that. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, my question is the township going to be asked to maintain that road allowance? No.
Not that I'm aware of. No, not,
Who will maintain it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have dozens, if not hundreds, of unmaintained municipal road allowances throughout the entirety of the municipality that are unmaintained. They're able to be utilized by members of the public, but not altered. So,
You
no,
have no obligation then to maintain it?
no, that's correct.
okay, Jason, you want to give us the preamble on 23?
Beach 22.
No. 22, sorry.
B22, C1.
Yep.
It relates to C1 on the screen. It's the easternmost parcel of this 3 separately conveyable parcel land holding. The proposed severance is for a 1 hectare, 60-meter road frontage lot, which is similar to what we just considered on parcel B. That being said, it's on a different land holding, on the largest land holding of this suite. It's 137 meters in depth, 60 meters of frontage, 1 hectare, meeting the minimum requirements of the zoning bylaw of the Township of Stone Mills. And it's, of course, being the one that was amended from the previous submission of being a long lot, so it's no longer applicable to the easement that would transfer across the southern portion of the land holding. Happy to answer any questions regarding this file.
Comments or concerns from the committee? I'd ask for a mover and a seconder. Move to approve, Bob?
Yeah, move to approve.
Have a seconder? Aaron, thank you. Anyone have any comments or concerns? Yes?
I'm wondering when the wells that are already in existence on the property are going to be up on the Ontario well records so they can be seen. And I'm also wondering, can anybody tell us, and perhaps the developer can, how many wells have been drilled in total? All right, because this is kind of unusual. Severances normally happen before anyone drills a well. The well gets drilled then to get a building permit, can improve water. Whereas there's been, the community tells me, I'm from York, you tell me anything. They tell me that there's been lots of wells drilled. Can the developer tell us how many and where are they, and are there any that failed? Because the thing about well drillers, as I well know, is if they fail, they don't normally enter a record. You can't look them up and go, oh, there's a well. Okay, it just doesn't show up, yet it is in the property. Can anybody help me on that?
Emil?
Yeah, I believe it's been 7 wells that we've put on. 7, yeah. The only reason why we did them prior to this is so that we have a level of comfort that we would be able to actually facilitate what we're trying to do. They all will be part of the hydrogeological assessment. So, yeah.
Were they, were they supplementary? You had an engineer design where to put them so that you're going to get this picture.
No, the well driller we use, who's licensed to do so, he tells us where the best place would be to put them.
Yeah.
Within the confines of where we're planning on having.
So they weren't placed in to enable you to do your hydro G off them? In other words, do interference between them or do interference with the ones on the separate lots?
I can't speak to engineering questions that way. I'm not
But you
qualified.
didn't have an engineer, you had
No.
well drilled.
That's right, to facilitate the lots.
Okay, you understand my point? If
Yep.
you go into hydro G,
They will be part of a hydro G, yes.
what if the engineer turns around and says, thanks a lot, guys, but I need 5 more wells here, what are you doing? I can't.
I believe Jason might be able to answer that better, but
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I understand you don't have the.
Camille, I have a question.
I was referring to Jason if you wanted to jump in.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'm sorry for popping up and down, but I don't speak that loud. Those wells were drilled before you owned the land, were they not? But you only bought the land in May? That was when the deal was?
Closed on it in May, yes.
Uh-huh.
We bought it a long time ago, as one of the previous owners can attest to.
But wasn't it one of the, a previous developer that had built the? But did you order the wells constructed or did somebody else?
I ordered the ones that I did, yes.
Okay.
There were some done previously that I cannot speak to.
Because walking the Cataraqui Trail, I've seen 5 along the Cataraqui Trail and 1 over on County Road 4. And I can tell by the way the corn is plowed that there are more up in the center of the field. So that accounts for more than, what did you say, 7? 7? Okay. Anyway, why are the well reports not reported yet on the well registry?
I don't know what the well drilling does on that. I know it takes a long time for them to be updated, but I can't speak to.
No, you have to update them within 30 days of drilling them.
I don't do that. I'm not a.
Who does?
licensed Shop well drilling is the one that.
Excuse me, I think we've gone far enough on this subject. We have a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Bob and seconded by Aaron that we approve. I'll ask for a recorded vote again. I'll ask you, Brandy, to poll the committee.
Member Fenwick? Member O'Gara? Member Surgeon? Member Clancy?
Yes,
That's passed.
approved unanimously. Thank you. B22, Jason?
I think B26, Chair. Application 26, 2023 pertains to parcel C2 on the sketch in front of us on the screens. This is somewhat different in the sense that it's a proposed lot addition from the easternmost parcel to establish a fully functional lot fronting Robinson Road with respect to area and frontage. So it's what's being considered is a 0.6 hectare, 35 meter piece of land on the easternmost piece and merging together with parcel B that we discussed previously of being the retained to establish a 1 hectare, 65 meter road frontage parcel. It's very consistent in terms of size, area, and configuration as the 2 on the either side that were just previously considered. It's the centralmost parcel in that section. I'm happy to answer any questions that might pertain to this.
Committee members, questions, concerns? Any questions from the audience? I'd ask for a motion. Yes, Marilyn?
Motion?
To approve? Seconded by Bob. Any further discussion? I'll ask for a recorded vote. I ask you to poll the committee again, please, Brandy.
Member Fenwick?
Yes.
Member O'Gara?
Yes.
Member Surgeon?
Yes.
And Member Clancy?
Yes. Approved unanimously. Thank you. B57, Jason.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Application B57, 2023 is the most unique to what we've considered this evening as it pertains to a portion of the land in which to be added to the easternmost portion of land. It's measuring approximately 1.6 hectares in area. It has 0 road frontage on Robinson Road, and it was largely a focus of discussion at the September Committee of Adjustment meeting. As you can see, it's southern to the 3 lots that were just considered fronting Robinson Road that measure 1 hectare in area, and it's located east of the unopened municipal road allowance running north-south. It's proposed to be merged to the lands to the east and make up a greater land holding of retained parcel C in area, which would contain frontage on County Road 4 and Robinson Road. There's been much discussion this evening related to this land holding as a whole and the future development permissions or proposals from the applicant related to what that might entail. I can say at staff's level, we are looking at this as it's submitted at this time, given that the rural zoning doesn't permit what may be considered and what I've heard discussed of greater density, future subdivision planning, road construction, multi-residential units, any of that sort would all necessitate subsequent Planning Act approval through potentially this committee and or council, depending on what the applicant may wish to do. This proposed lot addition piece is subject to an easement, as you can see, as you can see on the screen, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may be applicable.
Questions, concerns from the committee? Any concerns from questions from the audience? I would ask, yes, Wayne?
Yeah, just confusion at the age. There's 11 wells in the property. And that gentleman indicated 7. Fair enough, that's good, because 4 have to be pre-existing from unit. Do we know anything about them, and do we know anything about failed wells? So in the sense of complete transparency, and if you don't know, you don't know, but that would be my concern if I was in his position or in your position. Do we know anything about how many wells, do we know anything about failed wells?
Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question, Mr. Goodyear. I'm not able to speak to the total number of wells on the property, as we know there's differing questions, and as the municipality, we've not been in receipt of any well records for any wells on the property to date. They're all required conditions that ought to be completed, and final approval be contingent on that in accordance with the Ministry of Environment's requirements. All that being said, I am aware through conversation that there was a well drilled in the northeast corner of what we are referring to as retained parcel C on the screen. It was the very most northernly easternmost corner of the property. I don't recall the exact date in which it was drilled. I don't know what the ownership stake was, who was in possession, nor who paid for the well to be drilled, but I understand the well was unsuccessful. The well didn't yet garner the results that the Ministry of Environment requires to be considered a potable well. I don't have a well record on it on file. However, I was told that verbally through communications in past. That's to my extent of what I know as it relates to groundwater wells on the landholding as a whole. And I bring it up because it's on what we're considering, if you will, through this lot addition proposal as it pertains to retained parcel C.
Supplemental, simply that there are salt wells just north of that, because I was looking at trying to find if there was any records for this property, and there weren't, but in doing so, you find the ones that are above, and you can now research them, everybody can do it, it's very easy to do. And there were 4 wells on record that are heavily salted and abandoned, not on this property, just north of it for 2 of them, and further north again toward number 4 for 2 more. So salt is an issue at that end. They have nothing to do with this, but that should be noted. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I understood Mr. Sands correctly, but have we been told that in fact no final approval would come unless this committee actually knows about the results of all of those wells? And I guess another question I have is that we know that according to the rules, that anybody who has a well drilled needs to be able, within a couple of weeks, I think, telling the owner of that property what the result is. So many wells, and yet there's so little information that you are aware of.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can answer the first part of your question, Mr. Ellens. The process in which these applications would be finalized doesn't necessitate a subsequent Committee of Adjustment approval. The decision that's been rendered to date regarding the previous files has supported the recommendation of staff in that wells need to be completed and drilled in accordance with the D55 standards of the Ministry of Environment, and a Hydro-G study completed through the full assessment, which is peer reviewed by external peer reviewers on behalf of the municipality. Now, those are stipulations and requirements that are to be completed before the municipality at staff's level issue what's called a certificate of official, which is the final document providing final approval for lot creation. That's why I refer to this as being provisional approval, subject to the conditions is contained within, and final approval being tied to the successful completion of those conditions and the issuance of that certificate of official. Hopefully that provides clarity.
Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Marilyn, seconded by Aaron. Thank you. Any further discussion? Randy, I'd ask you to poll the committee again, please.
Member Fenwick?
Yes.
Member O'Gara?
Yes.
Member Surgeon? Member Clancy?
Yes,
It's passed.
approved unanimously. Moving on. B56, Denridge Road. Oh, I guess we've got to get Dieter back, sorry. I forgot about him. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Through you, Mr. Chair, application B56, 2023 relates to a lot addition application as opposed to a lot severance application to create a new lot. It's proposing to increase the size of a parcel that's 1 hectare in size by, I believe, approximately another hectare in size. This application may seem or sound familiar to the members of the committee because it was before the committee in 2 separate previous events. The application to sever the original 1 hectare parcel was applied for in 2020, and the committee made a decision to approve that on October 14th, 2021. However, the applicant failed to finalize the application, so they were back to get approval for a second time. Second time, the committee approved it on March 2nd, 2022, and everything's been finalized as of September 20th, 2023. Now, the application before us this evening is to increase the size of that 1 hectare parcel, because from what I understand is the newest potential owner is wishing for this parcel to be enlarged in area to allow for a different sort of opportunity to build a house and set out a garage, et cetera, and just have an overall increased lot area. So from these applications perspectives, we're looking at compliance as it relates to the retained parcel. And we've done so in that the 31 hectare retained parcel maintains ample road frontage on Denridge Road to sustain agricultural uses in accordance with the comprehensive zoning bylaw of rural zone, as well as increasing the size of the 1 hectare parcel just provides a greater building envelope with no real additional concerns from a staff's perspective on future uses. I'm happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Committee members have any questions or concerns?
Is the person here who owns this or applied for this?
It's Emil. You want to join? You want to join it? You want to join us, Emil? Sorry. I know you're the representative. Anybody have any concerns, questions? No?
No, it's, as you know, I didn't approve the original severance for a number of reasons. This is a lot of record with a lot addition, so I have no concerns.
Yes, Aaron?
I would just make a motion to approve as written.
Moved by Aaron to approve, seconded by Bob. Any further discussion, concerns? All those in favor? Carried. B 59-2023 Verde Lake Road. Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the applicant's with us this evening as well. He can provide additional information that I may not. However, I can provide an overview with respect to the severance application before us, B 59-2023, pertaining to 99 Verde Lake Road. I also want to, I know committee's cognizant of this, but also be pointed out to reassure that committee's aware that there's a related minor variance application that's subsequent and further on in the application for tonight's consideration related to this proposal before us here. Essentially, the parcel that's currently being developed with a single family dwelling identified as a house on the sketch is proposed to be subdivided into two separately conveyable land holdings. The parcel lacks sufficient road frontage on Verde Lake Road, which is a publicly maintained year-round road, as well as it lacks the parcel area requirement of 1 hectare that our official plan sets out. Our zoning bylaw sets out as the minimum lot area requirement. Our official plan contains policies, and they're contained within your staff report before you, that speaks to the appropriateness of lot creation should the parcels that are being considered maintain a minimum of 0.5 hectares in area. So 0.5 hectares is approximately 1.25 acres. And this proposal seeks to create two 0.7 hectare parcels. So aligned with those policy considerations of the official plan, the recommendation before the committee is that they approve, subject to a hydrogeology study and an assessment of appropriate sewage suitability on both the severed and retained parcels to confirm that they can adequately support one another in what would be developed as single family dwellings on those parcels. The road frontage requirement is a unique in this situation. And I'll just very quickly provide an overview. I know I'm straying into the minor variance application, but I want to provide it at this time because I know the two are directly related. All the lands to the north of the subject property are provided access via a private road. Forget the road name. It's A to Z Verde Lake Road, I think. It's a private road. That private road actually transfers and is owned by this property owner. So it's along that easternmost portion of this subject property. And it maintains, this property would maintain approximately 152 meters of road frontage on that public road that provides access to those land holdings in behind or north of the property. So there's official plan policies that speaks to lot creation on privately maintained roads. And it's essentially stating that our official plan recognizes that lot creations can occur on privately maintained roads, but they can't be used for anything, or they can't be extended. They can only occur as an infilling type of situation. I just mention all that because it's kind of applicable in this situation, but it's really not because we're applying 33 meters of road frontage on the public road. There's not been confirmation provided from the applicant as to where they may want to put a driveway for the severed parcel or retained parcel, depending on what you call. However, that road frontage is sufficient from a frontage perspective to provide that driveway access out to the public road. Secondly, our Public Works Department reviewed this application, and And I bring that up because it's important to give consideration to the Public Works Department when we're talking about reduced road frontages for lot creation. Road frontage requirements are typically instilled in the rural context to ensure that you have enough frontage for access out to a publicly maintained road, as well as enough separation distances between driveways so that you have safety and sight lines that are applicable. In this situation, there was no concerns raised from our Public Works Department relating to the reduction in road frontage and the double driveways that may enter off of Vardy Lake Road, which is the publicly maintained road, because essentially the road terminates at the boat launch just immediately west of the subject property. So the speeds and the vehicle traffic on Vardy Lake Road are not of concern. So that's a very quick overview of this proposal, and I understand that there's some complexities to considering the application of consent at this time and variance in the future. However, as you can appreciate, for efficiencies, they're running the applications concurrently as they're very entwined for a development approvals point of view. I'm happy to answer any questions that relate to this concept or the clarification provided from the planning report that was authored. Thank you.
Committee members have any concerns, questions?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of concerns. Despite Jason's remarks about the road frontage and the right of way, for me, this is rural. This is classified as rural RU, right, Jason? It's RU.
No, that's incorrect. Through you, Mr. Chair, it's rural residential zoning, RR.
RR, okay, RR. So the requirements under RR are still 1 hectare and 60 meters of road frontage. That's correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so the severed parcel then is undersized. It also doesn't have the required road frontage. In addition, the retained parcel is undersized and doesn't have the required road frontage. So I just can't get my head around, approving something like this. And the other concern, which I'll just throw in, the Severn sketch itself, it is hand drawn, unfortunately. And being a surveyor, when I was out there, I could see that there's something not right with the sketch. The sketch is not at all accurate. It doesn't accurately show the conditions on the ground. That's just a concern. However, my main concern again is the fact that both Severn and return parcels do not agree with the zoning provisions.
Yes, Marilyn?
I'm inclined to agree with Dieter that the sketch doesn't really give me a good picture. And I'm looking at the particular measurement of 24 meters. And it goes from part 5 and part 3, which is that then that laneway. And so it's going to the far side of the laneway. And this gentleman owns that property. But can you really include that? Because are there not other people using that laneway? Therefore, how does that work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a great question, Member Fenwick. Yes, what's identified on that sketch is part 3, part 5, being the private lane known as A to Z Vardy Lake Road. They are owned by the property owner that's proposing this application. So they are truly representing what that easternmost would be the side yard setback. That being said, how it works, if you will, is that there's another setback requirement in the zoning bylaw that speaks to a separation or setback distance off of a private lane. I believe it's 6 meters off the top of my head that you would need to set in for the construction of a dwelling, for example. Now, that leaves a very narrow building envelope when we're going to talk about what that is in the adjacency to that private lane. However, that's not where the expectation of staff would be, where we would see the future dwelling constructed. It would be to the rear of that in the bulkier section, if you will, of where the severed parcel 0.7 hectares is noted on the plan, where we could demonstrate conformance with that setback off the private lane, side yards, and rear yard setbacks.
I'm still very curious. It's a bit of a conundrum, actually. So if we take the 24 meters, take 6 meters off that, it leaves 18 meters, and that's right on the edge. No. And how wide is that actual laneway, which is seemingly included in that 24 meters?
The right of way is 40 feet wide,
How many meters is that?
12.2 meters.
12.2. So we've got to take 12.2 plus 6 off that 24, which leaves this much space to come from the main road to that 0.07 hectare part, which really leaves a narrow space between the corner of the lot, which already has a house on it, to that lot at the back.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if there's a question in there for me, I'll try and provide the clarity that I'm thinking. 24 meters of width is being depicted on this plan. 12 plus or minus 12 meters of a right-of-way width, plus or minus 6, not plus or minus 6 meters of an offset or setback distance off of that. 18 meters is what that equates to off that easternmost property line. So 18 meters and off of 24 is 6 meters. 6 meter is sufficiently wide enough to provide a driveway access to get to the rear portion that would be considered the developable area of this parcel.
Any more questions, concerns? Yes, Jason?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair, more so than a question or a concern. My comment is that this could become a question or a concern of the applicant more so than staff and or the committee, should they not be able to comply with these requirements of road frontage and area, given the lack of a survey accurate plan. Should the committee make a decision, I say should the committee make a decision to approve and the applicant ought to comply with the conditions, if the conditions aren't complied with that prove that there's truly 33 meters of road, 33 and a half meters of road frontage as what's recommended or and contained within a decision, then there's no ability for the applicant to satisfy effectively those conditions, and it would no longer be approved and applicable based on the conditions that would be included within a notice of decision. All that being said, should there be concerns of the committee related to the functionality of the lot, related to the measurements or lack of detail provided on the sketch, there's an opportunity to defer and require the applicant to provide a survey accurate conceptual plan that gives us, or gives the committee, sorry, more comfort in understanding what that is. I think ultimately there was a lack of interest from the applicant in completing an additional survey accurate sketch before getting the committee's initial consideration of this application, given the fact that it's a rural context, as Mr. Eberhardt pointed out, and that there may be some concerns related to the committee's support on this application.
Sorry, I was talking to the applicant about the sketch, and he indicated the surveyor just couldn't get out in time. Now, the surveyor could draw a proper sketch. It would considerably change the frontages of the two parcels as well. It would be more of a number of jigs and jogs to get by the house with the 5 meter setback. Regardless, still not going to change the areas or the areas or the frontages to compliance. So again, even if there was a proper sketch done, it still wouldn't change my concerns about the area and the frontages.
Okay. I need a motion either to approve, deny, or defer.
I'll make a motion to deny. I'll make a motion that we deny the application.
Seconder? Second by Merrill. Any further discussion, concerns? Oh, Brandon? Yes? Sorry. Say something?
This is my application. My name is Ryan Deckerell. I live at 1172 Bethel Road. So the part 3 and 5 is a road that I own that is used by all the cottages at the back. There's 12 cottages, I believe, back there. All those properties are 0.4 of an acre. So they all use that right away, and they're all, so that's why it's called Vardy Lake Road A to Z, right? So they're all using that. So what I'm asking is for a 1.7 acre parcel, I use that driveway and build a driveway off of that, just like everybody else who's at the end of that does. I'm just asking for a minor variance on the size because I don't have the acreage to comply with your 1 hectare. So what I would do is bring the driveway, essentially use part 3 and 5, and bring a driveway off the back and build a beautiful house back there on 1.7 acres. I'm just saying that I've done severances in this township, and I've severed off complete bushes with like 0.1 of an acre that is usable. The rest of it is not usable, and you guys approve it. This is complete wide open, nice land, and I wouldn't even have done this, but the well is so good. Everything in that area is so developable. Every lot around there is so small. Why wouldn't you allow a 1.7 acre property? Every lot down that road is smaller than what I'm proposing. Every single lot, if you go down Vardy Lake Road, every lot on the north side is under 1 acre. Everything in that area, everything along Vardy Lake is all under half an acre. Every lot in that area is under half an acre. So I don't understand why 1.7 acres isn't good enough for you. I'm just, it's you, we had this discussion. You said you didn't like this right from the beginning. And I said to you, I said, it's a field. It's not bush. Like the whole thing's not bush, and I'm not going to cut a little treed area and build a house in a treed area. It's a nice, and when you look in the backyard, it's a huge field. It looks ridiculous with one house in the middle of a field. Like everybody said, they don't want a house in the middle of the field. So why not put 2 houses in this field? It's 1.7 acres and 1.7 acres. It's not crazy.
And right, it's simple for me. It just doesn't comply. I realize that all those, it's not my opinion. And the bylaw says 1 hectare and 60.
I do not like this application. You just said, I do not like this application. That is your opinion.
No, it's not.
Sorry.
It's not my opinion. This thing not working?
Hopefully not. Hi, Bob. I'm good.
It's not working. It's not working. I don't like it because it doesn't comply to the zoning regulations. And as far as all those, well, I live on Vardy Lake. I know what those things are like. But you know the old canon, and I mentioned this. That was then. This is now. You can't compare what stuff was done 50, 60 years ago
So that's
to
why I
what the
handed in a minor
requirements are
variance,
today.
asking for the minor variance to get approved. That's why I went through the process to ask for the minor variance. I'm asking for it. Is what you're saying, everything around it is wrong, is wrong compared to on the bylaw. Everything around it.
Well,
So I'm asking for a minor variance for that 1.7 acres.
And if I could.
We got a motion on the floor.
Like, I'm not asking for a 0.3 acre lot. It's 1.7 acres. It's a big lot. You were there. We were there.
Oh, yeah, I
You
know. I
said,
like
I do
that.
not like this application, right there. I was like, all right, sorry.
Moved by Dieter and seconded by Marilyn, that it'd be turned down.
Yes.
Brandy, I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Member Eberhart.
Yeah,
Nay?
for deny.
Deny. Member Fenwick?
To deny.
Member Ugera?
I'm gonna say yeah.
To deny? To deny? Member Surgeon?
Yes. No. Okay.
To deny?
No, I want to do that.
Yay is it? I'm approved. I'm approving.
You're approving their motion.
No, no.
No.
I'm opposed to this motion.
Yes. No, why?
And Member Clancy
I'd have to say yes.
to support the motion on the table? To deny? To deny the application?
No, I deny that in the application.
So that's passed. To deny.
Pardon me?
That's passed to deny the application.
So how do I appeal this? No.
Okay. Okay, the next one is B 62-2023 Academy Street. Numbered company. Jason?
No, you're not done. Go sit down. Consent application
62.
B62, sorry. B62, 2023. An application that was, that applies to a property address municipally as 235 Academy Street in the village of Newburgh. The sketch on the screen depicts or illustrates what's being proposed, and the application to subdivide the property is one that staff have recommended multiple conditions to be included within. Essentially, this is a relatively large landholding within the village of Newburgh hamlet boundaries that lacks sufficient road frontage as it relates to proportionate to the size of the landholding. The property maintains 44 meters of road frontage, as you can see down in the southwest corner of the sketch, onto Academy Street. However, the building envelopes is 2.2 hectare on the proposed severed retained parcel and 2.87 hectares on the proposed severed parcel. Sorry, I got those inverted. So the applicant is proposing to subdivide the property in a relatively unique configuration to split the road frontage on Academy Street and maintain sufficient building envelopes in the majority of the building area on the property. I say that because there's an area to the easternmost portion of the property that's a regulated Quinney conservation area that's non-buildable. The intent, it's my understanding through this application, it's the intent of the owner, the applicant, to subdivide the property to allow for increased flexibility on density on this landholding and in this development. The proposal is to maintain one access and one driveway to get into the greater developable area that's north of the existing single-family dwellings fronting Academy Street. And I believe that entrance or driveway has been successfully installed as of last week. As part of this consent application to subdivide the property into two separate landholdings, the applicant's proposing to establish an easement over the driveway. So a reciprocal easement would be in place so that the severed parcel can be utilized for providing access to the retained parcel and vice versa from Academy Street itself. In the opinion of staff, this is an effective way to facilitate intensification and development in a hamlet on a large tract or a large parcel of land that lacks road frontage. The recommended conditions that are before the committee this evening are consistent with what the committee has seen on other applications with regards to hydro-G studies, appropriateness of water, potable water, et cetera. But the one condition, which is condition 6, that I want to bring the committee's attention to, is a condition for rezoning. And just before us on the previous application, we had a somewhat similar application that saw a reduction in proposed lot area and a reduction in proposed lot frontage that was or is concurrently being processed. And you'll see later on in the agenda a minor variance to recognize or attempt to support that reduction by the applicant. This application is different in the sense that the condition that staff have drafted for your consideration this evening in condition 6 states that the applicant shall rezone the proposed severed and retained parcels to a site-specific hamlet residential zone to facilitate appropriate design, appropriate performance standards that would respect and regulate future residential development. Why there's a difference from a minor variance application on the previous and a rezoning recommendation on this application is because the zoning that applies to this landholding, in the opinion of staff, is inappropriate for the property. The subject property is located within a rural zone. Well, a rural zone isn't what we would typically zone landholdings in settlement areas, specifically hamlets. So we as staff want to see this application be rezoned so that we have better refined performance standards that are applicable to all the other properties around this property in the hamlet of Newburgh, and also through that process recognize the reduction in proposed road frontage. The key difference, of course, for the committee and those of us in the public that may be unaware, is that council of the Township of Stone Mills is the one who makes a decision on zoning bylaw amendment applications as opposed to the Committee of Adjustment. So the Committee of Adjustment was considering an application this evening for the lot creation and the proposed severed and retained parcel configuration. However, council ultimately would have the final say on this application given the drafted inclusion of a required rezoning application. And as we know, if the application is not successfully rezoned within that time period, the conditions aren't satisfied, the consent would fail, and a certificate wouldn't be issued. So I just wanted to provide that greater context as to why this is somewhat different than the previous, and I'm happy to answer any questions of the public and or committee to that end.
Jason, I need some clarification about the frontage. In your report, and I'll just quote here, according to the Township of Stone Mills official plan approved by the County of Lennox and Addington on November 8th, 2023, the subject lands continue to be designated hamlet. Is that correct? Okay. And it's also, the property is also zoned rural, right? And I was reading from Jake Detler's report, because it's rural, he indicated that frontages are supposed to be 60 meters. So which one takes precedence here? Because that has to do with them, because you're going to need a minor variance for the frontage. So there's quite a difference in variance between 45 and 60.
So the subject property is currently zoned rural. That's accurate. The current zoning requirement for frontage in a rural zone is 60 meters of road frontage. This parcel is considered a legal lot of record in the sense that it doesn't comply and it's never complied with that frontage requirement.
Okay, what about the hamlet designation? I mean, you said it's designated hamlet, and under hamlet, the frontages are 45 meters, right? So
through you, Mr. Chair, I
confused,
think we're getting confused on hamlet designation and hamlet zoning. Hamlet zoning requires 45 meters of road frontage, but a hamlet designation doesn't contain that level of specificity. A hamlet designation just says that this is what we've denoted as being our settlement area and where we want to drive intensification
from a use point of view, but it doesn't spell out what the specifics are in terms of frontage. The zoning bylaw is what spells out
Okay,
that
so
level of
the zoning
detail.
is what governs. All right, well, I just wanted to know, that's all.
Okay, Dieter?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dennis Kerr, and I live on the property to the south of this 27-acre odd property. I thought it was one of the oddest properties in the township until I saw the previous map.
You can blame me for that, eh? I surveyed them all.
So you actually touched on something in what you explained, Jason, that answered one of the questions I had. I've only got a couple. It's in the last sentence of the letter we all received as neighboring property owners, and it says, given the location of the proposed access from Academy, reciprocal easements are anticipated. And I wanted to know what that was. I'm going to tell you what I think I heard you say, and that is that the driveway that you've already started is going to be effectively the property line between the two resulting parcels if this is successful. And the easements would be that each parcel shares the driveway to provide the access. Am I right in interpreting you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, that's absolutely correct. I just think it's easier to point it.
Yep.
The parcel line, the subdividing parcel line is supposed to be that thick black line. And these lighter lines on the adjacent side, on each side of it, are proposed to be what the extended easement would be.
Okay. So I didn't, that was my question, was what's the easement you're talking about? It's that they'll share the driveway,
They'll share all
the road,
to there, and they can go.
Okay.
If I live, if someone has a house here, I could go on that side
Mhm.
to that line.
Yeah. And one of the more important questions that I had that Emil actually answered for me, because he's been very open with me as I've asked questions in the last month or so, was why would you take this strange piece of property and make it even stranger? And the answer he provided was that it has to do with his plan, and that is to do 10 units, and that the water approvals, whatever they are, I don't know them, but you can only get 5 on a well or something. So you need 5 on one parcel and 5 on the other, and that is the fundamental driver for parsing this into 2 pieces. That's, yeah. So.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can provide a bit of clarity on that, not knowing what the exact specifics of this are, but yeah, in the rural context, in unserviced lands in the rural area where we use private septic systems and wells, the Ministry of Environment sets an upset limit of 5 dwelling units. Anything more than that on a single parcel of land necessitates a whole different subset of requirements. Similarly, with septic systems are capped at a 10,000 liter a day effluent discharge number. So they don't get into like the water side number of units, they get into just the flow numbers. So if you exceed that number on a parcel, you need a different approval set. So by subdividing a property, you allow yourself different abilities to stay under different rules on water and sewer front, private water and sewer fronts, depending on what might be considered to be built. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the other question? Oh, and so in terms of the rezoning, that would be, I think it was condition 6. That would mean that the parcels would, if everything proceeds as it wants to, is planned to, they would go hamlet residential? Is that what they'd end up as, the 2 pieces?
So what staff, through you, Mr. Chair, what staff have included in condition 6 is a recommendation that it would go to a hamlet residential zone, but it's a site specific, but it could be a site specific hamlet residential zone. And I say that because the frontage doesn't comply with 45 meters of road frontage, right?
Can I ask a question there? What's the frontage for hamlet residential? Is it-
45 meters.
It's 45. Oh, okay. I thought it was less than that.
45.
All right. So that would be like you say a site-specific hamlet residential. Is that a longer version of minor variance?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's go with that. It allows you, basically a site-specific zone, what it does is you can write uniqueness into that zone that'll only ever apply to that landholding in the whole of the municipality.
I see.
So we do it quite often in the world of planning. If, for example, you didn't want a 30-meter setback from a wetland. You wanted it 45 meters of setback from a wetland because there was an endangered species that required an additional setback. You would put that in a site-specific zone and say that property on that schedule has to be 45 from a wetland, not 30. That's kind of an analogy that could be used as to why you would introduce that.
All right, you've answered my questions. Thank you.
Anyone else have any concerns or questions? Need a motion to approve, deny, or defer? Don't everybody speak at once. I'll ask again, motion to approve, deny, or defer? Well, I guess we're not going to get very far on this one.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved by Dieter, motion to approve. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Aaron. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Denied? Not in favor?
I'm sitting on the fence and it shouldn't be, but I feel that way.
Motion's carried. Okay, we're into minor variances. I guess this one here, the first one, no discussion, right, Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've seen it before. I think our colleagues over here can pull up the sketch. We're proposing to reduce the lot area and lot frontage. That being said, if the consent wasn't approved previous in the agenda, the concurrently submitted minor variance doesn't really hold much weight. But I can answer any questions that might arise.
Yes, Bob?
What is the next, if you want to apply again to something, is there a way you can get that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, what I expect will happen is that the applicant will appeal the decision of the committee this evening to the Ontario Municipal Board, which has been, the Ontario Land Tribunal. It's formerly known as the Ontario Municipal Board. The report this evening by staff and all technical review agencies is to support the application. So I suspect that I personally will be subpoenaed as a registered professional planner to support the applicant through this process of approvals and represent them on behalf of this project at the Ontario Land Tribunal. And the municipality will be required to, on behalf of the Committee of Adjustment, defend themselves through the hiring of an external registered professional planner and municipal solicitor. I don't know why, if the applicant has the ability to rejig and reconfigure, they do. They could do so and resubmit. However, that's really those would be, in my opinion, the two options for the applicant as to the way they would proceed forward based on what decisions have been rendered this evening.
Can I just say one more thing to Dieter? It's not nothing. All right. So I wasn't even going to do anything here. I was just going to leave it as a, a 1.4 hectare lot. But there's a building permit at the end of my road that I own on a 0.4 acre property, and he's building a brand new house that's not waterfront. It's just a 0.4 acre lot, and he's putting a house there. I'm just saying, he doesn't even own the right of way. He's taking my right of way, and he's building his house. He doesn't even have a driveway. His driveway is the end of my right of way. So that's the only reason I applied, is because I saw that it came in the mail. He added a minor variance. So I was like, well, if he's going to do all this off of the property that I own, then why can't I build a driveway off the property that I own? So the driveway is going to come, they're going to continue to own part 3 and part 5. That house will own part 3 and part 5. So essentially, that is their driveway. it's Vardy Lake A to Z, but it's their driveway. And then I just pop a little driveway in and build a house on 1.7 acres. I'm not asking for, it's not 0.5 acres. It's 1.7 acres. Like, the lot that the guy's building on is the size of this room, and he's putting a house in it, and it's already pre-existing. I know that from whenever, but he's still doing it. And that's the only reason I came in and brought in this application, was because how come he's allowed to do that? I know it's pre-existing, and I can't do that when I own the road. Like, I just don't get, like, he doesn't even have a driveway. He's going to use my driveway as his driveway. Yeah, so like, I own the road to his driveway. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why I am asking for a minor variance off of the official plan, but what I'm asking for is not ridiculous. It's not crazy. And if you want a proper sketch, I can get Tom McDonald to drop the proper sketch and get that submitted. But I know we measured it out. All the numbers, it's not going to look exactly like that because I drew that before I started the house, but all the numbers work. I am 24 meters from the property line. I'm actually 29 meters from the property line to the corner of the house. I made sure I knew all those numbers, and I actually put it on the drawing. I know I'm not a sketch person, but that's what I came up with. So I'm not asking for, it's not a tiny little lot. It's 1.7 acres.
No, well, you two of the committee members agreed with you and 3 didn't. I mean, this thing about I went back and looked at that. I can't believe that they got a building permit to put something on that small lot. But again, that was then, this is now, it's a lot of record.
Why can't we be more like then? Why do you have to hold that? It's just it's a minor variance for 0.3 hectares. It's smaller, it's bigger than the property he's building on.
The decision has been made. Let's carry on. I didn't bring my pajamas with me.
So I'll appeal this. He's very good, actually. Yeah, I leave for Florida in a couple days. We're going to Florida.
It just gets thrown out, right? You can't do a variance on something that we turned down. You had to get the severance in order for it. So do we need something in the minutes to state that it's null and void?
I think it would be in the minute. It's going to be that this application wasn't considered given the fact that it's denied.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's the way I handle it. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Minor variance, AO1-2023. I don't do like it. Sorry, let's go. Is the applicant here for Islandview Lane?
Yeah.
Would you join us, please? Go ahead, Jason. You're on.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Application A01-2023 pertains to the property known municipally as 56 Island View Lane. This application is a slightly different application than what the committee's considered in the sense that this is a application for permission as opposed to an application for minor variance. The permission application is applicable under section 45(2) of the Planning Act as opposed to section 45(1), which applies to variances. And the reason that this is an application for permission is because there's an existing on-site dwelling on the property, and the proposal is to demolish and reconstruct this legal non-complying existing dwelling in a similar scheme, in similar fashion, in a more compliant location. The existing single-family dwelling is arguably in the lake. in the floodplain and beyond the top of the bank. The proposed dwelling is to be approximately 22 feet setback from the high water mark associated with Beaver Lake. And in addition to the setback increase, the applicant is proposing to only increase the dwelling by approximately 50 square feet in size from a 850 square foot dwelling that exists today to approximately a 900 square foot dwelling that's being proposed. The proposed new dwelling is consistent with the old in the sense that it's a single family or a single story in height. It's not to be contained with a full basement and a second story or any of that sort. It's a similar footprint as well as total gross floor area. As it relates to the sewage disposal system, the existing site serviced with an on-site holding tank, and through this application, the applicant's proposing a conventional sewage disposal system, septic system, at the rear of the property, behind the proposed cottage, in the furthest setback they can possibly achieve from the high water mark of Beaver Lake. The application was carefully considered by the Quinte Conservation Authority, and I say that because the applicant will attest to the amount of time in which we've taken to get to this stage, and I believe we're approaching 24 months, if that's accurate, in getting a plan and identifying what the surveyed high water mark is, identifying top of bank, and understanding that further permitting requirements will be required from the Conservation Authority, our building department, and our sewage disposal system permitting requirement. However, this is the first step in achieving that direction in garnering the Committee of Adjustment consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions, and maybe the applicant would like to provide anything further than I.
Anyone in the committee have any concerns, questions?
Oh, I don't have any. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
What's that, Dieter? Sorry? Bob?
That high water mark, the water in Vardy Lake, or sorry, Beaver Lake would have to get awful damn high before any water is going to get up there. It's got to be 7 or 8 feet up to the level land.
Or from what I could see, what's been proposed is a big improvement over what's there.
Well, I think so too. And with the installation of a proper septic system, I mean, that's got to be a plus, plus, plus for the whole damn thing.
You have a question, sir?
Yes, I have a cottage right next door to this cottage, and I mean, this is fine, I have no problem with it. My cottage is 13 to 14 feet from the boundary. I think the old cottage is like 9 feet from the boundary, it's quite close. So it makes a lot of sense. I just want to make sure that when they're digging, because I think if I look at the footprint, they're building exactly 10 feet from the boundary, that there'd be no digging on my property line, because it's a bit of a hill. I don't want upheaval of the property on my side. I know he's cut all the trees down along the boundary. I think the last one he cut down was 3/4 of on my side, 1/4 on this side, but he cut down anyhow. I just want to make sure that we don't have erosion on my side when they're doing this construction, and then he's digging on my side.
To answer that, I did cut a tree down. It was 1/4 on his side and 3/4 on my side. It was almost dead, but I paid for the whole cost.
Could I have your name and address, please, sir?
John House, 2994 Pleasanton Road, Kirbyville.
Get that, Randy.
John House, 2994 Pleasanton Road, Kirbyville.
I'd like,
Just one
oh,
other
okay.
thing. Quinte Conservation thought our cottage was 5 feet on John's property. So John and I talked it over, and we decided to get Hopkins and Chitty to come back and find the survey stakes. And at the top, I gained 2 inches. John, I think at the bottom you gained 3.
It goes towards your cottage, yeah.
Yeah, well, they knocked the tree
I
down,
have
not
no
the stake
problem
down.
with it. I just want to make sure that when they're constructing the digging in the township, be careful that they don't start eroding my side. Everything's so close back there.
Yes, Dieter?
Yeah, I just want to commend you for getting the surveyors in. They marked the boundary line very, very clearly, so there should be no no mistake in where the boundary line is. So that was well done. Thank you. The other thing, I do want to commend you on the report by the Concord Engineering. You know, this application was well presented and well done, and I'm quite pleased with the effort you went to do this. It was well done, except you still have to produce a little better constructed plan, but I'll leave that to you guys.
Our Ryan Kiner, this is the excavation thing, and all excavation material, this is on his side of the property, all excavation material is to be stockpiled along the side of the excavation in piles of no more than 1.5 meters in height. Light duty silk fence must be installed in accordance with OPS drawing at the perimeters of the construction area to prevent any sediment from entering the water. But that'll all be put in when we demolish the fishing hut. Also, geotile landscape cloth with flat weatherhead bedrock. Everybody knows what weatherhead bedrock is. To hold a flat bedrock, to hold the cloth down, it'll be covered with a 5-inch to 8-inch riprap stone. Also, down here, the silt fence is not to be removed until all disturbed vegetation around the site has been reinstated. That has gone to Green Conservation.
Okay,
Well done.
need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved by Bob, seconded by Dieter. All those in favor? Carried. Good luck. You're on your way.
Just one more comment.
Yes, sir.
The chair is supposed to hear in Denver. He told me that he can only speak for 5 minutes. That's it. And I just want to say, you handle as chair. I've been in industry. I've been in industry for 48 years. Different circumstances, but you handled this meeting very well.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure I'm not the popular opinion, but that's okay.
You'll never run.
I've been used to that.
I'll never get on this committee.
Well, I've been here 24 years, so anyhow. Minor variance, 812-23, that's the one that's going to be deferred. Right, Jason?
Application A12-2023 applies to the property addressed as 130 North Beaver Lake Road. The applicants are here this evening. Maybe they'd like to join us at the table. The recommendation, staff haven't authored a planning report to summarize this application at this stage because the recommendation of the Conservation Authority is that an updated plan be received from Hopkins Chitty, or Clancy Hopkins, sorry, related to the extent of the floodplain. So the comments that are being put forth to the committee for their consideration this evening is that the application be deferred until the Conservation Authority provides comments respecting the development application for their consideration.
Concerns, questions? Need a motion to defer. Moved by Bob, seconded by Aaron. Do you have any concerns or comments?
Sorry, can you just highlight that again? So you're waiting for.
We'll send you comments from the Conservation Authority if you haven't received them already, that speak to what specifically they want delineated on the Hopkins sketch for floodplain. And once they get that, they'll be able to provide their recommendation to us as a whole, including staff as well as committee for consideration.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. A15 2023, 37 Union Street. Finney, you want to join us, please? Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A15, 2023, understanding that Mr. and Mrs. Finney have joined us here this evening. The unfortunate reality of sitting through tonight's meeting is that the recommendation is consistent with the previous and that's to be deferred based on the comments that we had received from Conservation Authority, very similar to our application at Beaver Lake. The Conservation Authority is not in position to provide us with a recommendation at staff's level nor the Committee of Adjustment level because they want some clarification regarding that floodplain delineation that's on the sketch. So until that time, we'll make sure that we provide those comments and make sure that that's outlined if Quinny hasn't already directly. But until that time, I suspect the Committee of Adjustment would like a more fulsome review or a report as to what their recommendation would be before making a decision on the application.
Questions?
No, yours is no.
Press that. How's that?
Press the silver one.
That's right, yeah, I got it. Cheers, Bob. There you go. Pleased to meet you all anyway. I've met some of you, but not all of you. How do I start? Or where do I start? What it is, I appreciate Quinty conservation, but I've actually been face to face with Catherine Sinclair. And this is going back now, probably nearly 18 months. And as Jason knows, that I wanted because I've got an RV on there, I actually wanted to put something over it to stop the weather because I've already had damage with the weight of the snow on the trailer. So, yes, Quinty, Catherine, she was more than happy to give me the permit, as I think you know, Jason. She was, but she had to ask you about it or consult you. And because there wasn't a structural building on it, I couldn't have this structural over the, I couldn't have this canopy, like a canopy over the RV. So, but we discussed before any of that I mentioned about if I could have some sort of lean-to over the RV. I asked her, before I go any further, how am I with the floodplain? I discussed it all. She brought it all up on the map to me and everything. And she said, well, I can see by there, she said that you're well in the, is it 50 feet? Yeah, something like that. She said, well, you're well in with that. She brought it up and she showed me everything. And then because of that, I said, right, she said, but what you need to do is get it surveyed, get a building envelope. And I use Ron Clancy. He was the one that come out, surveyed it. I got the building envelope. I had all the building envelope. And then as far as I was knowing, this was the property that I could put on. I had enough room to do. We advanced it a little bit just to try and move it up. Just sorry about this. I'm not the best of a scholar, a speaker. But what I'm trying to say is, it's been today. My wife flew back in today, so we can get this sorted out. I don't know if she told you that my mother-in-law has had a heart attack, and she's come back to support me with this because I've already found out today that Quinty Conservation is not happy still with the elevation.
Ron received and myself an email at 12:20 today to say that she wasn't happy with the build envelope, but we wouldn't have proceeded as far as this. But probably, Jason, you have it. We took the elevation, the floodplain elevation from
For what she
Catherine's,
gave me.
from Quinty Conservation was it this year or last year? And
Last
that's what Ron has built the build envelope on.
Ron is more than satisfied with the
But then
envelope.
Catherine's thrown back at him now that it's got to be from a bridge or something.
Well, I don't know. I mean, back, she come back to support me with this today. And, but at the end of the day is, I just didn't want to go any longer. I've had the well drilled. I've drilled the well. I would have had the septic put on before now, but we said that you said wait and you get your permits for everything. So I don't know what to say, you know. I just wanted to try and have something to look forward to in the spring of the year when I come back. My wife, she was born in Ontario. I know we're living in England, but my wife was born in Orillia. So I wanted to I bought the plot of land for our 10th anniversary, for our anniversary. That was on the 10th of September, a long time ago.
Unfortunately, we have to wait for a decision from Quinty Conservation.
Yeah,
And they are not known to be quick.
yeah.
So I would have to, unfortunately, I sympathize with your situation. The only smart comment I got to make, it's a good thing you were behaving yourself and your wife landed in unexpectedly.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
I sympathize, but I can't see any other way that
It was just with.
we
sorry,
have to
Mr.
wait
Chairman.
and get a report from Quinty. Am I correct, Jason?
Yeah.
Can I make one observation, please? As I understand it, Quinny's not happy with the floodplain line that Ron put on the plan or something like that, right? And just be finished. The Quinny apparently does have an elevation for the flood line for that part of the river. And I'm just projecting is, I think maybe they may want the survey to go out there and actually mark out the physical location of that contour line and put it on his map.
He come back out again. He's done it twice because he said I can't understand why she wasn't happy.
Okay, but on the plan that he has now, he says the floodplain contour for Quinny Conservation Aerial Photography. So he just copied it off an aerial photograph. He hasn't, I don't know if he's actually gone on the ground with the levels and actually marked it out.
He has, so yes.
Okay, so he should be producing another plan for that. I mean, maybe that's maybe what they're looking for.
Yeah, well, I had all of that done.
Okay, I need a motion to defer. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Merrill. All those in favor? Carried. Sorry.
No. Okay. Right, thanks anyway.
Our hands are tied with the
I know.
Conservation Authority. gives
I
us
know, I
permission.
understand.
That's the one that requires
No.
the. Yeah,
as
I
said,
think just for the minutes.
the other day,
Who wants to take care of
I didn't know that she was.
Other business.
We didn't tell her that she was.
He's a character. He's a
Well, that's what I,
Just a motion to table it.
that's what I was,
Dad's a character. We're both able.
That item,
He's mine working well.
or A16,
Well, and using
be tabled.
Dieter,
We've given.
Dieter, the
We've given.
meeting's not over, let's go.
We've given a lot of separates on Bethel Street, or on Cutler Road. He's got a lot of separates. He owns a lot of lots.
Do you want me to read the motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me jump in quickly. Just in order of business, application A16, 2023, the minor variance application of Ryan Dackerel related to the consent application that was decided upon that wasn't successful. We sort of glossed over item A8 in our chronology of the agenda because there was arguably no decision to be made because the consent wasn't made. All that being said, our clerk has authored a motion that she's going to read out that we're hoping that we can receive confirmation from the committee on for logging this in the appropriate way through our minutes. That's what we're circling back to at this point.
So if we can get a motion that reads for item A8, A16, 2023, 99 Vardy Lake Road, that the item be tabled due to the requirement of Severin's application being denied.
Move in second. Move around, second by Deere. All those in favor? Okay. Okay. Back to business. Any other business for the committee here tonight?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Alright. I just want to know why one of the committee members can sit out on one application and then come back in on another application. I just don't understand why you didn't come in on the 6 applications before.
I'll let that committee member answer that question.
Well, I just.
You're asking me why I could clear a conflict of interest? Is that what you're asking me?
No, and I don't care. You don't have to tell me why. Is that why you had conflict of interest?
I think he came in after we declared the conflict of interest.
Yeah, I declared a conflict. I declared a conflict of interest on the Robinson Road service severances.
Okay. I guess that's all I got.
I can talk to you about that at some time. at
No, I
length,
don't
if
need
you
to,
want.
I don't need to know. I just was wondering why you came back in and then said no to me, but you sat out on the other ones. I'm just wondering why, but it's fine. I'll go through the rate.
Anybody have anything else for the committee? I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Bob. All those in favor? Whew, thank you.